born of the mountains, blood of the Indian. He lives by the way he hunts. He rekindles the fires of the past and roams in buckskin. He survives by Hawken and longbow. He's forged by the elements. Journey with the last of a breed, Sasquatch, Mountain Man. Here in the autumn mountains, monarchs do battle, and to one will fall the kingdom. For Laramy Miller, there's only one way in.
Tell you what, in these mountains, a good pack critter is worth its weight in gold. Getting all your supplies to and from safely is a big deal. Some canvas, a little bit of food, coffee pot is a necessity. Like the old mountain men back in the day, everything they owned, they usually had one pack critter. That critter hauled their stuff all over the Rocky Mountains.
There's an old saying, nothing's better for the insides of a man than the outside of a horse. Words Laramy has come to swear by.
You know, I grew up in this country, and it's my favorite place to go. It takes you back 200 years. Back here, you rely on your critters just as much as you rely on your feet and your savvy. And these mountains are beautiful, but they're unforgiving. I think about it all the time, and I would have loved to have been one of the first guys to ride a horse through some of this country. There's no roads. All it is either foot traffic or horses. That's all you can get back here.
The horse's indispensability makes it hard to say where it ends and a man begins.
Tell you what, you look all around and you just see God's beauty. This is truly the home for a mountain man.
Few places remain in the world where time not only stands still, but the clock runs backward across the centuries.
When you think of the mountain men 200 years ago, it would have been a challenge to say the least. But it would have been fun.
At night, there are sounds from the days of Jeremiah Johnson. From dusk to dawn, elk bugle from peak to peak, echoing like the cry of some strange bird. For elk, the heat of the midday is unbearable, so to find them on the move, you have to be up early and late before they bed down.
Last night I heard a bull bugling from camp down at the bottom. You can see right here, this is where he was bugling from. You can see he tore up the ground all over the place, wallowed around in a little bit, probably peed, marked his territory.
There are certain calls for certain times. And bugling is what works now.
Just tried to say good morning. Yeah, I heard one way up the canyon. Let's get closer and see.
This time of year, with the litter on the ground dry and crackling, it's all about moving soft and slow.
I know there's elk over there. I'm gonna ease up to that edge and see if that wind's coming up. That bull's coming in here right here.
With the bull coming, Laramy needs to be lying in wait, with his arrow knocked to his bowstring and his mind centered. The elk's call swirls through the canyon, like the notes of a pipe organ in a cathedral.
It's right here somewhere.
Laramy's running out of ridge. With the bull coming up, he can't afford to push no farther. All he can do now is hope that the elk will step into bow range. It's land Laramy feels in his bones, where elk link him to his frontier forebears. The language of elk is something Laramy speaks fluently. This young bull has come to the call like a bug to a porch light. Without even bringing his bow to a full draw, Laramy decides to let this elk go. This bull carries only 5 points to a side, telling Laramy it has some years to go before it's the age and size to take. A 5-point can fool you if you don't count right. You look for a fork or a whale tail above the big fourth tine to make a royal.
I could have shot that one. I was waiting to see how old he was. He looked like he was only 2.5, maybe 3.5. Well, the mountain man said, shoot that son of a gun. The sportsman said, no, let him get a couple more years on him. And, well, the sportsman won. That was freaking cool. That was a heck of a stock. It was 35 yards. The day's still young.
Even if it don't include fresh elk liver, Laramy can still whip up a darn fine mountain meadow breakfast.
Got some fatback, taters, chives. Now, if that's not gourmet, I don't know what is.
Laramy kicks out the fire good, and it's time to be on the trail again.
It's really warm. It's probably mid-40s and it's only an hour after sunup. Not a good recipe for elk hunting, but I'm not gonna complain. I'm in the high lonesome where I love to be.
In the September heat, the elk will be after some place to lie down and let water and mud cool their skin.
This right here is what I want to see. It's been super, super wet all year here in Colorado. And the bugs are horrible.
Biting flies can drive elk plumb loco, sending them looking for relief wherever they can find it.
Them bulls are going to be wallowing a lot. As you can see right here, this has been wallowed in within the last 12 hours. What I like to do is I take some of this mud and I rub it on me for scent cover. It helps out, I think. It's a good sign. I do believe I'm going to set up right here and do some calling and see if I can't get lucky. Let's just hope the elk don't get too excited.
Mud will keep flies from biting, but only if, like an elk, you completely cake yourself in it. But Laramy knows other medicinals.
You look back in the mountain men, they had all kinds of crazy remedies. You know, for instance, one of nature's best bug repellents is sage. Sage was a mountain man essential. They used to use it, they flavored their foods, They rubbed it on themselves for scent control. They did all kinds of stuff. But one of the biggest reasons they kept sage around was for bug control. I've got some here. The bugs are getting pretty bad this evening. I'm gonna try to get rid of some of these bugs. I can promise you that's a trick that I won't ever forget.
Good thing about hunting elk, they're a natural born alarm clock if you just happen to nod off on the mountain. It's time for Laramy to be up and at 'em. And if the big bulls ain't coming his way, he's just gonna have to be all about finding them.
Can't even keep track of the number of bulls that are bugling. There's bulls all around us. Just had something sneak in behind us and smelled us. One bad problem. Most of them are way up there. There's elk all around us, so something's bound to happen. It's considered early season, but they're starting to figure out a pecking order.
In the high lonesome is where Laramy Miller calls home. The mountain man in him hunts for food, but the sportsman knows to let this one go and hunt for a bigger one.
One bad problem. Most of them are way up there. I don't think I got enough time to get up there before dark.
By the time Laramy got there, shooting light would have been a thing of the past.
I was planning on staying out here tonight. I guess we'll see what happens.
Some look at a fire and see wood burning. For others, dreams and memories are growing in them flames, opening a window to the past. The mountain men forayed into the Rockies to trap furs first and foremost. Catching beaver and other furred critters was a business venture, not a sporting pastime. Most were meant for sale to the traders, come rendezvous time in July. Some, though, had to go into necessities like hats, mittens, and leggings. The mountain men had to be self-disciplined, though, when it came to how many furs they used. Each pelt stitched meant money out of their purses. That's what made the elk such a valuable commodity among the mountaineers. An elk gave you more than just a winter's worth of meat. Use the hide for buckskin and sew it into clothes and moccasins with sinew for thread. Antler made into buttons and used for knife handles, powder measures, and awls for piercing hide, making elk commissaries on 4 legs. The beauty of these mountains faces the worst threats, not from the biggest animals, but from some of the smallest.
This is where I cut my teeth. I grew up in these woods, and it was kind of crazy and sad for me. You look at what the pine beetles have done to a lot of the forest around here. It used to be nice, thick, dark timber. But to look around now, just year after year, half the trees are dead. It's just a giant tinderbox. Eventually, lightning's gonna strike in the right place and it's gonna go up in flames. That's Mother Nature's way of controlling the forest. But guess what? There's still elk in these woods, and this canyon right over here is one of my favorite places in the world to hunt. And I don't have very much further to go.
It's hard for a canyon like this to not be a favorite when you can see bull elk as magnificent as this climbing up the slopes.
Right now it's considered early season. It's the beginning of September. These bulls, they haven't started gathering their calves up for the most part. The bigger bulls are still off kind of on their own, but they're starting to figure out a pecking order. So bugling works really good to locate bulls and actually to call them in. Cow calling still works somewhat. You know, little mews will calm an elk down, but to get him excited, bugling is going to be the best. Then you give it 2 weeks from now when a couple of cows have come into estrus and all the bulls are starting to join in the action. That's when you want to break out the estrus calls and, you know, a lot of cow calling compared to bugling. Bugling still works, but they're looking for cows. They've already figured out their pecking order. They're looking for cows. And then you got the late season where bugling and cow calling, a good mix, actually works really well. Just had a satellite bull come in. Couldn't get him on camera. He was through the thick trees and kind of out of the way, but there's elk all around us, so something's bound to happen.
We're losing light fast. That bull better hurry up and make up his mind.
Riding the high country's Laramy Miller's objective come September to put him in proximity of bull elk. Laramy's holding out for something better. Yesterday, daylight ran out on him. Now, he's got one more day.
There's elk all around us, so something's bound to happen. Now this is elk hunting.
Elk are one animal where noise can help. The right kind of noise, anyhow.
You know, these critters are pretty amazing how smart they are. I've walked down trails and run into bears sitting downwind of a trail so they can smell what's coming down, trying to ambush, whether it's a deer or elk calf or whatever it is. These elk, coyotes, they're the same way. You try calling them in and they'll circle downwind. They'll get that wind in their favor and then come up to you. That way they can smell you way before you ever really see them. You have to account for that every time you set up.
The day is going.
We're losing light fast. That bull better hurry up and make up his mind.
This game's about to be called on account of darkness. You can't kill what you hear unless you can see it. Only 40 yards away, well within bow range, this bull is wrapping itself in a cloak of blackness. Night is where this bull is bound.
It's right at dark. Pretty much too dark to shoot. I'm gonna ease out here real slow.
Without the eyes of a lion or an owl, Laramy can only try to find his way back to camp.
It was written in the earth below that this time would come and I'd have to go. It was signified in the sky above.
September dreams flicker, but they don't die, lighting the way to another season, another hunt.
And as you travel through this world alone, over mountain high and valley low, carry my memory like a burning stone. And if you lose your way, it will guide you home. Bless me, Lord, I've lived a life of sin. Forgive me for the things I've done again.
This is real hunting. I'm not out here sitting in a tree stand waiting for an animal to walk underneath me. I'm hunting.
I've been to hell and back a dozen times. I've tried to change but couldn't get it right.
It ain't easy. There's nothing about this life that's easy. And sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose.
Up here, on the outskirts of the clouds, where the air lies thin, is where you find mountain deer and mountain men.
Here I am, I got a mule deer tag in pocket, chasing some of them big old mule deer down here.
You know, we're on the tail end of the full moon. When I got up this morning, you could see outside pretty good because the moon was still up. Well, what that does is, that means that them animals were feeding all night long last night. When that moon is up, them animals are feeding. So they probably bedded down right at daylight. And the best time to catch them is going to be the middle of the day. When you got a full moon like that, a lot of people, you know, they hate the full moon. They hate hunting during the full moon and whatnot. But I'm just the opposite. If you know how to use it to your advantage, it can actually work really well. Like I say, if you're out there from 10 to 2 on a full moon, more than likely you're going to see critters up moving around.
Laramy knows well the sign of a mule deer. It leaves a stout track on the slopes, near as big as an elk's. And its rack's not far smaller either. It was the Indians that taught the mountain men to hunt mule deer when they fetched up in the Rockies. They called him Wasichu. For the Indian, it meant someone not like them. First thing the mountain man had to learn, though, was how to hunt and trap like the Indian. In the fur trade, from the Indians, mountain men learned where and when to trap prime pelts and find food for winter. They counted on Indians to show the way where no maps existed, and often bartered for knowledge with iron traps and steel tools. In time in the fur trade, it became hard to say where Wasichu ended and the Indian began.
Them animals are up and moving. Hopefully we'll get something walk by us.
To get something to walk by him, or at least in front of him, Laramy needs to be up and moving.
There, right there. He's right behind that tree.
You see an animal over there, one of the easiest ways for them to pick you out is the lateral movement. They can see really good side to side, but their depth perception is a little off. So if you walk straight at them and keep something in between the two of you, I mean, a lot of times you can walk right up on an animal.
This is a buck that ain't quite certain if it's seeing a stump or a Sasquatch.
That was freaking awesome.
Laramy Miller's running the ridges on the trail of the mountain mule deer. The deer fed under the full moon, and Laramy knows they'll be out at midday. He just needs one clean shot.
Got a pretty good buck down here. The only two escape routes are to the left and to the right.
After some ruminating, Laramy decides to give it a go. Now, it's down to one slow squeeze. Oh, or maybe not.
Man, it was a hang fire. I think I probably shot right over that buck's back.
No question.
Dang hang fire, I felt myself pull up.
Hang fire. It's one of the most low-down cuss words in the mountain man's vocabulary.
Oh, man. Oh, that's why I love hunting with a muzzleloader, especially old Hawken like this. It always keeps it interesting. Wow.
The mule deer's a contrary critter. This one may have just topped over the ridge and settled back down. On the other hand, it could have cleared clean off the map.
I made a hellacious walk down some steep, nasty crap, up some steep, nasty crap, got over here, and I thought I was going to get lucky. I was going to find that buck bedded on that hillside, but there's a reason them big bucks get big. He outsmarted old Sasquatch today. That was a long hike for nothing. Pretty country though.
The sun snuffs out in the sky, and Laramy heads for the barn. He has some thinking to do about the ways of mule deer.
When you're up high like this, if they're in the timber, they're tough to find. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to head down to where it's a little more open. I can have a better chance of seeing a deer before he sees me. You always got to adapt. That's the one thing about hunting that I've learned.
Before heading for the low country, Laramy rustles up a hot breakfast, mountain man style.
You know, mountain men back in the day, they had to be skilled in all kinds of woodmanship, whether it's making your own bullets, shooting a gun, shooting a bow. If something was broke, fix it themselves. Throwing a knife, throwing a hatchet, you never knew when you were going to be challenged. They had to always be ready for something around the corner that wanted to kill them, whether it was a hostile person, a bear, a pack of wolves. They never knew it was around the next corner. So they had to constantly be ready for everything.
Many's the time a pouch of bullets was worth more than a poke of gold. Laramy just hopes he spends one of them shiny new bullets sometime soon.
There is a ton of deer in this area. I've got a scrape line and working up and down this ridge, following all these rubs through here and seeing if I can't get lucky and come up on a deer.
Shifting down to lower ground seems to be putting Laramy into good country. Now, it's up to the deer to see if they'll give him his chance.
That was freaking awesome.
Mule Deer country. Laramy Miller's strategies found deer, but a cussed hang fire's gone high. And Laramy's got to do some hard hiking if he hopes to catch up to a buck.
I've got these deer right here, and there's no shot at getting any closer and getting a shot at them. And I know there's 2 bucks right down here in the bottom. That's what I was stalking in on. So my dilemma is to sit here and try to wait these deer out that already know I'm here, or to go after that big buck in the bottom. Well, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. I'm gonna spook these deer out of here, go see if I can't get on that big buck.
For Laramy, it ain't a bet unless it's all in. But no deer's just gonna stand around and let him meander up. He's got a good Hawken Rifle to reach out with, but he's still got to close the distance.
This is an actual true Hawken. There was only less than 300 of them made originally. You know, whenever you hear about mountain men or you think about mountain men, what do people think about? Jeremiah Johnson and the Hawken Rifle. It's like the staple of the mountain men. Let's see what it does to this cantaloupe.
Feeding a charcoal burner's as much chemistry experiment as it is hunting experience. You gotta know the right formula, or you end up with a heap of smoke and no fire. The Hawken Rifle.
What happens when that round ball hits, it stays together a little better and just mushrooms out and destroys everything. What I got now is I'm gonna shoot at 100 yards. We'll see. It's pretty good. Dead on. That's the nice thing about these round balls. They'll destroy anything in their path.
Now, Laramy's gonna see if he can stretch that Hawken barrel all the way out to 200 yards.
I do believe I shot right over it. Well, as you can tell, 150 yards is about my max. When I can't consistently hit a watermelon at that distance, I have no business shooting at an animal at that distance, so I'm 150 yards and in. That's the way it goes. Gives you a little more respect for the mountain men back in the day.
Laramy shooed off the smaller deer. Now he's trying to work his way into range of the big buck he saw behind him.
There's fresh sign everywhere in through here. Jumped a big herd right up here on top of this hill. I'm just gonna ease real slow up this hill and see.
That's when, below him, like a ghost, the buck materializes.
That was freaking awesome.
Only mountain men and mule deer climb this high. A hang fire's just one of the trials of hunting with a Hawken. Luckily, there's more bucks where that one came from.
They can see you just as good as you can see them. Makes it tough.
He's definitely sporting headgear, but is he what Laramy wants to take?
Dang it. Just not that 4.5, 5.5-year-old buck I'm looking for.
Live to hunt another day, I guess. That'll just make him a little smarter for next time I go after him. I'm always up for a challenge.
You can always take a deer from a stand at the edge of a cornfield or over a food plot you sowed last spring. But to hunt a true wilderness mule deer, you gotta scale a peak or two. Smell the wind in your nose, feel the coming of the snow in your bones, and see what lies back of beyond.
The rut is definitely on. There is deer tracks, running deer tracks all up and down this ridge. There's a big scrape line about 100 yards off the edge of this ridge. You got a pretty good chance at finding some deer today.
There's a nice buck right below us.
This time, the shot breaks clean as dry kindling.
That was freaking awesome. Oh boy. That's pretty neat right there. Nice, pretty fat. This old boy, oh, he's gonna taste good. Now the work starts.
It's work Laramy hankers for.
Well, I just got back to camp with my mule deer and all the meat. I'm gonna get some of that flesh off that hide. That way it'll be easier to flesh at the end. Take that hide home and brain tan it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and cook up some of these ribs. I'm one hungry Sasquatch. Been an interesting week. Had a little bit of everything. Another great week in the Rocky Mountains for the old Sasquatch.
Oh, this is about more than ribs over a fire, or hide for buckskin, or even antlers that will have a story to tell for years to come. It's about where a man fits into these mountains and the tracks he makes along trails both old and new. Long before white men ever laid eyes on this spectacle called Alaska, the native people knew it as the Great Country. Now, it's Laramy Miller's turn at discovery.
This country ain't no joke. I love it. I think I found me a second home.
Even with as much land as this, you still got to hunt out the right place to pitch your lodge.
All the snow-capped peaks, this big open tundra. It's a mountain man's dreamland right here.
And not since the days of the buffalo has a mountain man seen herds like these.
It's crazy to think about the caribou migration. You look around and you see just huge trails cut into the earth. And some of them 2-3 feet deep, where caribou have migrated hundreds of years, thousands of years. And they migrate upwards of 1,500 miles a year. When you think about that, that's halfway across the United States. Caribou is interesting because their hair is hollow and it makes them really buoyant, so they're phenomenal swimmers. They also have oversized hooves to work as big paddles swimming across lakes and rivers. I've watched caribou swim 2-3 miles. It's pretty impressive.
After miles on the river, Laramy may have finally found the perfect place to hammer down some stakes.
When you're setting camp up, especially in places like Alaska, you have to take into account the wildlife. You've got grizzly bears, you've got wolves. Don't be an all-you-can-eat buffet and set your camp up right on a game trail.
But Mr. Grizzly ain't the only danger. He ain't even the meanest.
What looks like a dry, nice area today could potentially become a flash flood in just a matter of hours. Find a nice little place on a bench, kind of hidden in the woods. I love to have trees around me. It keeps that wind off you, kind of muffles the sound. It'll keep the smoke muffled. There's lots of things to take into account.
Survival comes first, but if you know what you're doing, you can not only stay alive, but live quite well.
If you're wanting to live in the wilderness and be like the mountain men, they always knew you need to be prepared for everything. The elements up here are unforgiving. You have to make sure you have good equipment. When you're setting up a tent, you want to make sure that it's windproof and waterproof. If you don't have that, you might not wake up the next morning.
As the northern lights play out, it's time for Laramy to be up and about.
You know, me going from the Rockies to up here in Alaska, it's a big difference. The strategies for hunting caribou are a lot different than any other animal because they cover such big territory. Take elk, for instance. If you're hunting elk one day, chances are you go back in that same spot the next day, there's going to be the same elk there. Well, when you're hunting caribou, you might see 1,000 caribou one day. The next day, they're 50 miles away.
The vastness of Alaska calls for a special kind of hunting. Instead of looking down at the trail, a hunter wants to be looking out toward the horizon.
Well, here's the deal. There's a pretty good sized herd, and they're way out heading down this way. So I'm gonna go try to hunker down somewhere out here in the middle and try to get close, intercept them as they're headed out. Not gonna get too many chances, so better make them count.
It takes an entire pack of wolves to run down a caribou, so Laramy needs brains more than stamina.
You know, the terrain here in Alaska is different than anything I've ever really hunted. You've got your traditional mountains that are steep and rugged, and then you've got these big open tundras that are very deceiving. There is not an easy spot to put your foot down. These big open tundras, they look flat, they're anything but. One wrong step, breaking an ankle up here, could be a death sentence.
Those caribou are coming around this knob, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ease up and see what happens. Figure I might as well sit here, and that way I can see which way they're gonna go and try to move on them from there. But
Caribou wander the tundra like balls rolling on a pool table, and Laramy's only hope is to outthink them.
there's a pretty good sized group of caribou coming way up the valley. They're headed this way. As fast as they move, it won't take long for them to get here.
Boy, do I wish I had a moose tag.
It's a great new country for Laramy Miller. There are elements to face, and across rugged tundra, caribou to stalk.
They're headed this way. As fast as they move, it won't take long for them to get here. Those caribou look like they just turned. I think they're going to go all the way around this point.
With caribou well out of range, there's little enough cover for cutting the distance.
I can see a good bull. All them caribou are filing by right there. There's a big bull right there getting ready to come.
Laramy's itching to shoot, but something says too far.
You know, me as a hunter and a mountain man, I owe it to these critters to make an ethical shot. You know, the last thing I want to do is wound an animal and not recover it. There is nothing worse to me. I know what I'm capable of. And yeah, we get in the moment, and I've made mistakes in the past. So we owe it, as hunters, as outdoorsmen, we owe it to these animals to be precise with your weapon. If the shot is out of range, don't shoot.
Even with thousands upon thousands of caribou in Alaska, there will never be enough to risk losing even one.
It's still warm. The caribou haven't started migrating good yet. We've seen a few, but next couple of days, you'll be able to see caribou all the way up and down this valley.
So, there's still a good chance for Laramy to put his historic Hawken Rifle to good use. Many consider the Hawken the Stradivarius of firearms. Master craftsmen, the Hawken brothers used the finest walnut and maple for stocks, turning out only a score of elegant rifles a year. Indian bows were more rapid fire, but the mountain man's Hawken could reach out to 200 yards, giving him a superior range of protection. The Hawken was also the great equalizer when the mountain man met old Ephraim the bear. With Kentucky rifles, it took a squad of hunters to stop a Bruin, but one man with one Hawken could stand his ground on a bear trail. Up here in Alaska, having a Hawken can do much for a feller's peace of mind.
There's a sow and two cubs, big brown bear, going across this big open tundra, way up towards the bottom of the mountain.
Boy, do I wish I had a moose tag. They can walk through the thick brush and I can stand back and wait. 150 years ago, I wouldn't have to have a tag. I'd go kill what I needed, but gotta abide by the rules.
Even if Laramy don't have the right bona fides for moose, it's likely caribou will be along soon enough. Hunting caribou is a non-stop proposition. It's not here today, gone tomorrow. It's gone in 60 seconds. Alaska is more a country than a state, unless it's a state of mind. It's a new home for Laramy under the midnight sun as he tries to get into Hawken range of caribou. As fast as Laramy can go, the caribou seem to be one river crossing ahead of him.
Just had a big herd just crossed right here in front of me. I just couldn't get to them in time. I think if there's one thing I've learned caribou hunting, it's that they move really fast. You're never going to run them down.
There's nothing louder than noises at night, especially the clicking hoof bones of a passing herd of caribou.
All these caribou over here feeding through the willows. So I'm gonna get up on top of this bank and set up. And if that big bull comes out onto the beach, I'm gonna take a crack at him.
Once again, for Laramy, it's a matter of desire versus good sense. As close as these caribou may look, he can't be certain they're close enough.
It was almost dark and just a little too far for the old Hawken. But still got a few days and I'm gonna give her heck.
If your ears are tuned right, there's more music than silence in the night, whether it's the click of caribou or the whisper of the wind.
You know, since I was just a little kid, I loved nothing more than to go out in the middle of the woods and have all your senses working. I mean, your smell, your sight, your hearing. We were all born with the senses that normal animals have. The only difference is those animals have to use those senses to survive every day. That's what I truly enjoy about being out in the wilderness. I'm sleeping, but I'm still awake. I can still hear. I know if something's around. All my senses are at a 10.
The old mountain men had good cause for keeping their senses sharp. Lots of things out there in the dark that might have a hankering to eat you. It ain't much different for a new mountain man like Laramy. Things might be partial to eating him too.
When you think of the mountain men, they could smell when rain was coming 5 hours before it came. They could hear a horse coming from 2 miles away because they use those senses every single day to survive.
And the better the senses, the better the grub tastes, even if it's something as simple as feast cakes off the wood stove.
This is a little bit humbling for me. I'm getting tired of eating rice and fish. Just one of those things, if the animals aren't there, there's nothing you can do. Frustrating and I guess hits my ego a little bit, but I'm not afraid of walking 20 miles in a day.
But caribou can be 50 miles or just 2 as the crow flies.
gonna happen quick.
Alaska's glory, sky, land, and water, and tundra herds that rival the buffalo plains. But not even the midnight sun's gonna let you hunt all night, and only a wall of canvas stands between you and what walks in the darkness. With caribou on the move, Laramy needs to put himself in position to meet up with them.
There's game trails everywhere. You can see where these caribou have been migrating out of here by the thousands, crossing right here. So I'm gonna set up and see if I can't get lucky and have some cross in front of me.
One thing for sure about the North, there's no telling. With thousands of square miles of open tundra all around, it is in the very heaviest brush that Laramy finds caribou.
I can see a good bull. It's gonna happen quick.
You know, that was absolutely crazy. I'm sitting here waiting, and their caribou just kept coming by me. There was two different herds of caribou that come by. Here comes a cow and a calf. Right behind them, here comes this bull. Come by 10 yards from me. I gave the old Sasquatch stick of thunder, and I mean, they just keep coming. It's crazy. Awesome, awesome experience. Have me some caribou backstrap tonight. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now's the time for the hard work. And in Alaska, there can be more danger after the shot than before.
And when you're packing animals out up here in Alaska, you have to be extremely careful. Because when you're walking out with 200 pounds of caribou on your back and that blood's dripping down your backside, you take a grizzly bear, for example, me with this caribou meat on my back, he smells where that blood went across, he's gonna track me down like a bloodhound and I might be dinner. So you gotta be careful and just keep your wits about you. You might be tired and wanna take a break. Well, that 5 minutes of rest could be your last 5 minutes of life. Another thing about packing these critters out is these big open tundras are very deceiving. They look flat, but they're anything but. You fall with 250, 300 pounds on your back, you could get seriously injured. And you break a leg in this country, you might as well start praying.
There's nothing wrong with prayer, good for the soul. But the Lord helps those who help themselves, so it helps to be cautious.
It's amazing to look back in history and see how adaptable those mountain men were. They learned from anybody and everybody, whether it was an Inuit tribe, a Cherokee tribe. Wherever they were, they learned and then they adapted. I think that's what makes a mountain man's life so intriguing. You never stop learning and you never stop adapting.
And more lessons await here on the tundras of Alaska.
You know, they say home is where your heart is. Well, tonight, I'm home. The smell of the campfire, the brisk mountain air in the winter, some kind of critter snooping around out there. Probably a coyote or something smells this meat. Too bad, buddy.
The song dog, old Mr. Coyote, has been skulking into the fires built by people for thousands of years, as natural as the moon sailing across the sky.
Tell you what, there's nothing like being on a horse in the Rocky Mountains. Can't beat it.
You know, these horses, they help out tremendously because you can cover so much more country and you can get to that lion track without being tired before you ever get there. And then that way you can be fresh, you can stay right behind your dogs, and it makes it a lot more fun for you.
These are some of the worst hunting conditions for mountain lion that you can have. We got a bluebird day, it's warm out here, so the scent is gonna be going straight up. It's gonna be evaporating so fast that the dogs aren't gonna be able to smell it. Unless we catch a fresh track, we're gonna have a heck trying to catch a lion. We need some snow.
Silent hours in the saddle, trailing lions, changes suddenly into an all-out chorus of hounds.
You know, a horse can't go everywhere. There's some places you can't get him into, but he can go everywhere I need to right now.
How good is a dog's smell? 100,000 times better than ours. 10 particles of odor in a billion particles of air.
Deer hair right here, that's what them dogs are going crazy about. I bet there's a kill right there on this hill. They already got something treed. Let's go check it out.
A hound's got a bark for every situation. It'll chop mouth when it opens on a track, then bay long and sweet at the tree.
Well, it's not the Thomas we're looking for, but got a kitten in the tree.
You know, that's only probably about a 50-pound kitten in that tree. I say kitten. That 50-pound cat's capable of tearing me and my dogs up pretty bad if I let it.
It's just a little year-old kitten. Its papa's around here somewhere, though. You know, not very many people get to see a sight like that. That's pretty freaking cool. You know, you would think lions aren't quite like bears. They won't come to the rescue of a cub. They hear them dogs and they're long gone. You know, that's a little probably 40-pound kitten, but I guarantee you that thing could do some major damage if it got hold of you.
He's small, but deadly. But Laramy's gonna leave him be.
We saw a tom track up on the hill, so we're gonna circle around and try to find out where that tom went, and the mom for that matter. See if we can find out where they went and put the dogs on them. Come on.
These pups are wondering what they did wrong, but the boss wants to hunt something else. Must be he's never satisfied.
It's pretty funny. Look, that's my horse tracks coming through not 30 minutes ago. There's lion tracks right in the center of the horse tracks. So that lion had to have followed us through, and then she took off up the hill. I'm sure it's the female mother to that kitten we just treed.
Curiosity's what's motivating Laramy, but it's not a cat that curiosity killed.
You look, this is an older buck. He's already lost his horns. That's usually what the cats go after because they're usually traveling alone. Make it easier for the cat. I mean, we jumped that cat right off of this kill because it's not even stiff yet, and they haven't eaten any of it. Let's see if I can see where she grabbed it.
An old buck that shed its antlers is at its weakest and easy pickings, at least compared to a doe in with a herd of ornery females.
Broke its neck and the fight was over. Probably wasn't much of a fight. Don't think she liked that we treat her kitten. We may have another lion in a tree yet today. Day's still young. I'm gonna grab the dogs and see if we can't get them on this cat. Decent Tom, you got a big old head on him.
There's nothing like the Rockies from the back of a good horse. And dogs make it only better. This young lion will run another day.
Come on.
And Laramy hunts on. With the snow vanishing, the dogs are more important than ever.
You know, when I can hear my dogs off in the distance, for the most part, I know exactly what's happening without having to be there, because you can tell by the temperament of your dog's bark. And they're all different, but you learn to read them. Most of the time when a dog sees a cat or has a cat in a tree, his excitement level skyrockets, so his bark usually gets a lot quicker.
It don't take long to lose any delusions about lion hunting being easy. If you think you just let loose the hounds and catch a cat, well, try following Laramy around on the mountains for a while. Just when you think a hound's man's best friend, it goes and pulls something bonehead like climbing an empty tree.
Well, I don't know what the heck happened. They act like they had something treed, but we get up to the tree and there's nothing there. There's cat tracks. So I don't know if the cat jumped the tree and they didn't see it, or went up that tree earlier this morning and then climbed out and left, or what, but there's no cat.
Dumb dog. What we have here is a classic case of barking up the wrong tree.
Got my excitement up for nothing.
No. Let's go! You know, being on a horse has a lot of benefits, but one downfall is you can't read the tracks properly, so I'm gonna have to get off and get a better look at what's going on around here.
Like all good things that must come to an end, Laramy has gone as far as he's gonna go on horseback. Now it's time to switch to Shank's mare.
Well, this is where the horses don't go and Sasquatch takes it on foot. When I'm lion hunting, what I'm looking for, I'm not just looking for lion tracks, I'm looking for elk and deer, make sure there's game in the area, because this time of year, if there's elk and deer around, there's gonna be lions somewhere close.
The best hunter on the mountain isn't always the biggest. The bobcat is bright, or brighter than a lion. He knows the habits of his prey, like rabbits and hares, may be better than the cougar knows the ways of deer, which lets him wait in ambush rather than having to run everything down, saving lots of energy.
All these critters are smarter than we give them credit for, I do believe. They're certainly outfoxing old Sasquatch right now.
One look at the terrain tells you that no cat, big or small, is gonna come in easy. A day of hunting lion or bobcat takes its toll on man and dog.
I think those dogs cut a big bobcat track. We're walking the edge of this rim looking for lion tracks, and dogs start sounding off. Got excited for a second, but all it is a big bobcat. We'll probably go ahead and let the dogs run it out just so they can get some work. The more work, the better.
Making even a big bobcat worthwhile.
Decent Tom, you got a big old head on him.
Short days of winter, made for riding the high country, following baying hounds. It's not the lion Laramy wants, but no telling what his dog's noses will scent out.
I think those dogs cut a big bobcat track. We're walking the edge of this rim looking for lion tracks, and dogs start sounding off. Got excited for a second, but all it is a big bobcat. We'll probably go ahead and let the dogs run it out just so they can get some work. The more work, the better.
Laramy may not need any bobcat fur today, but there were times when a warm hide spelled the difference between living and dying. Even if a mountain man could find a dry goods store, nothing he could buy was likely to give him protection in the wilderness. Not even blanket wool would stand up to the rigors of mountain winters. Fur and buckskin are what you counted on. Deer and elk hide was breathable, pliable, and stick and bug proof. But moose and buffalo was too heavy for clothing. Fur, especially coyote, wolf, and wolverine, was ideal for frigid temperatures. Even today, there's nothing man-made that works as well as fur, made by nature for staying warm below zero on the mountain trail. Now, though, cold temperatures are not the problem.
The way the weather is right now, it's so warm that the little snow that we do have is leaving fast. I need some more snow to come in, because what that snow does is it holds the scent of that track in and makes it a ton easier for the dogs. The way it is right now, you've got patches of snow, patches of dirt. Well, on that dirt, the scent leaves so much faster than in the snow. So them dogs, if you get a track that's older than 12 hours, they're gonna have a hard time trailing it right now.
The day is wearing on. For the hounds, the scent of lions is fading away. While for Laramy, it's the daylight that's burning out of the sky. Doesn't look like new tracking snow's in the offing, so Laramy can only hope for a frozen morning.
Pork chops.
If it's any satisfaction, Laramy knows he's far from alone in finding lions as scarce as hen's teeth.
You look back into the history, read all the stories about the mountain men fighting off grizzlies and having to deal with wolves and all the buffalo and the elk. But one thing you never hear about is cougars. You know they were there, but that just goes to show you how stealthy an animal they really are. They're amazing, and not very many people get to see them. But I can promise you, it's still one of the toughest hunts. If you get out there and try to follow them dogs, there is. It's physical, it will beat you up. You're out in the elements, it's cold, it's winter. But it's fun. I love every single bit of it.
And like the old mountain men, Laramy knows more lions have seen him than he's seen lions. One could even be seeing him now.
Decent Tom, you got a big old head on him.
Laramy Miller is riding the track of the lion. And his dog's pack is as eager as he is to cut for a sign of a big enough cat that will stay treed.
We've been out here checking tracks since about 4 o'clock this morning. Just cut a pretty decent track. It's just breaking daylight. And they just jumped it. Well, you can hear them dogs got that cat treed. Now I just got to figure out how to get around this big steep canyon. We're bluffed out on the other side, so that's a great sound, though. There's a Tigger on the loose, and Sasquatch is gonna get him.
The morning cold has locked the scent fast to the trail, and that's let the dogs catch the lion. Now it's up to Laramy to get to the tree as fast as he can.
Here, right here's where the cat and the dogs ran through, so we're on it.
I could swear I just heard an elk bugle. I got a cat in a tree up here, but luckily it's the middle of the winter and there's no season, or I might be leaving this cat and going chasing that bugling bull.
Even with baying hounds, this cat seems unfazed. Right now, Laramy's heart's probably beating faster than the cat's as he hurries to get to the tree before the lion jumps it. It's a big, mature male with a lush pelt and some of the best eaten meat on the mountain.
Hey!
Decent Tom. You got a big old head on him. I like it. Nothing like first thing in the morning.
It won't take much longer until the hounds climb the tree. Laramy's gotta act before his dogs get badly hurt. There's nothing unreliable about a primitive weapon. As long as you do every step right. The reward for the hounds is running on to the dead lion. Now, Laramy's got to pull him off.
You get a Tom in an area, and what he'll do is he'll go through and he'll kill kittens. He'll kill younger Toms. He'll kill, he's a killing machine. He's going to kill whatever's in his path that he possibly can. And so by taking a few of these out, you're doing nothing but help the population of lions and deer and elk, so it's huge for conservation. But you still have to hunt them and control the population and manage it right.
The lion and the mountain man. Two rare critters, as much yesterday as today. And both are what keep the world a wilder place.
There's not very many people that choose to go out and live like our forefathers. It's a way of life. It all is an adventure to me, and I love every minute of it.
Now this is a beaver dam. These little fellers been busy.
You could tear this whole dam out, 2 days later, he'd have it rebuilt. And he's got 2 or 3 good runways right here. You've got a narrow passway and it's kind of a funnel. And it funnels in beavers down into their little runway, and it'd be a perfect spot to set a conibear trap.
First things first. And for the free roaming mountain man in beaver country, steel traps were the tool of the trade.
You always want to be careful. Try not to get your fingers inside. I'm bad at it every once in a while too, but you need to always be cautious.
The life of a trapper is hard, but it only gets harder for the pilgrim who breaks his bones and wallops his fingers. Staking down your traps in a beaver run is as sensible as picketing your horse on the mountainside.
You put too much effort into this to have something go wrong and miss an animal. I'm gonna keep moving down and set as many traps as I can. I'm bound to catch something sooner or later.
Once almost trapped out, beaver are back in a big way in all their former haunts, giving Laramy good odds. The first rush to the west was not for gold, but for plues, the hides of 4-footed dam builders. From Mexico to the British boundary, Missouri to the Pacific, the saga of the far country in the first years of the 1800s was the saga of the mountain men. Some young, some old, they all had to be enterprising trappers if they hoped to show a profit in the shining mountains. Whatever brand of critter the traps caught, they got caped and fleshed. But it was the beaver that was money in the bank. The work demanded a man of grit, willing to sweat. But a 500-pound bale of dressed skins delivered to Rendezvous could earn a free trapper the equal of $75,000 in today's money. Then, all the mountain man had to do was to make sure it didn't go to whiskey, women, and guards.
This right here is a perfect little natural funnel. Be a great place to set a conibear trap up and where it narrows down and funnels those critters in through here. I think I'm gonna set up a 220 just because the possibility of catching a beaver in this is just as high as catching anything else. So I want a little bit bigger trap, but I still want small enough to, if I do catch a mink or something like that, it doesn't cut the sucker in half. So I'm gonna use this funnel to my advantage.
For the mountain men, as well as for Laramy, setting traps is as much an art as it is a science, one you learn from years in the high lonesome.
See, and on this one, it's a little different. I don't have a tree or anything to tie to. So you put your 2 braces in, and then you got to put another stick out here so that you can tie the trap to so it don't go floating down the river. There's tons of food, tons of game in through here. So we'll let it sit and see how it goes. There's a little critter hole of something. I'm gonna set me up a 110 right there and see if I can't catch whatever's going in and out of there. Oh, will you look at that? That's the sight you like to see.
Laramy Miller follows where the mountain men once walked. he's practicing the free trapper's art, where he hopes the beaver are plentiful with a little luck.
Well, there's a little critter hole of something. I'm gonna set me up a 110 right there and see if I can't catch whatever's going in and out of there.
This is a conibear 110. Now this trap is awesome for smaller animals, pine marten. You can use it in waterways for mink. Really easy to set and works really well.
And now the next thing to do is to stake it off, and then I'm gonna tie it off to this root, and hopefully whatever critter's been coming in and out of there, it come running down and snap. Now I just take my safeties off and I'm out.
A good trapper looks to the care and feeding of his tools.
You have to maintain your traps or they're not gonna work properly. What I'm doing here is I'm boiling some water, then I'll add some logwood dye to dye my traps. What it does is it seasons your traps really good, helps keep them from rusting, helps them operate smooth, just like changing oil in a car. The main thing you're trying to do is you're trying to keep rust off your traps. With this logwood dye, there's a few other things you can use. I've been known to use pine sap, but I'm gonna add this logwood dye. Stir it up real good. You put your traps in, you wanna make sure they're fully submerged. You let it sit for an hour, 2 hours, it doesn't really matter how long, the longer the better, obviously. When I pull them out, they'll be almost black. That's when you know they're ready. Well, it's been about an hour, hour and a half. I'm gonna check these traps and see what they look like. Oh yeah, they're ready. That's exactly how you want them to look. Set these right here, let them dry off a little bit. Good to go. And I'll be ready for trapping season.
Now, beaver weren't all a mountain man could make money on. After all, Davy Crockett had to get his cap someplace.
As you can see right here, this is one of my little coon honey holes. Got lots of coons on this tree. It's already set up. All I gotta do is set my trap, bait it, and I'm good to go. You know, and you wanna be careful when you're setting this, just like if it was a 330, it's still capable of breaking your fingers and hurting you pretty good. What I'm gonna do with this is gonna make my little tunnel up towards my bait. And what that does is it makes sure that that animal doesn't try to go over or around. You wanna funnel them right through. Just like anything you're trapping, you're trying to funnel an animal somewhere. What do we have here? That's the sight you like to see.
In the 1800s, enterprising young men like Laramy Miller could make a good living trapping fur bearers. Mostly, though, traps and pelts paid for a man's stay in the mountains.
You want to funnel them right through. Just like anything you're trapping, you're trying to funnel an animal somewhere. Another reason you do this is you're basically just camouflaging this trap. And I'm just gonna take that and I'm gonna rub it right above this trap, about 4 to 6 inches above the trap, so that coon has no reason to go around the trap. He has to go through it. And the last thing you want to do is you want to look at a trap, and with this type of trap, you want to make sure that you're tied off so that when that animal gets caught in the trap, he falls and he's hanging, so he can't have anything to grab onto, and then take your safeties off. That's exactly what that critter's gonna see.
Now it's time for Laramy to let nature take her course. Like a watched pot that never boils, a watched trap never catches much. Come daylight, though, he'll be duty-bound to check his sets, to see what they might have harvested for him overnight. Depending on the size of the trap and where he set it, Laramy could be in for more surprises than a kid at a Christmas tree.
What do we have here? A weasel! Look at that cool little guy. You know, these weasels, when in the winter, they turn white. And a lot of people know them as ermine. And then in the summers, they're a darker color. Pretty stinking cool. Come on, little fella, you're going to the Sasquatch house.
Some people think trapping's like getting money from home without having to write for it. But a few hills like this will change your way of thinking. There's many a stream to wade in on the trail of beaver. One of the best signs is gnawed on trees. In many places, beaver help the watershed by holding back the streams. But in others, without trapping, they could eat through whole stands of timber in no time.
Well, will you look at that? Christmas came early. Beaver was the highest on the fur market because all the people back east were making beaver hats and everything else out of it. Between beavers and scalps, that was the biggest prize back then. Now I'm gonna take this trap off. And then take my prize back to the cabin.
With this 40-pound beaver in a basket, Laramy makes his way back. He's still got 2 more traps to check.
Oh, will you look at that? That's the sight you like to see.
Like the mountain men of old, Laramy Miller's out to sea the way the stick floats. Like a box of chocolates, you never know what you're gonna get in a trap. Although the beaver was the gold standard for free trappers, they were happy to have any fur for their pack baskets.
Well, will you look at that? That's the sight you like to see. It's gonna be coon stew for dinner. That's pretty. Perfect little hide on him. I'm sure I can find a good use for it, and that stew will be pretty tasty.
You can add this coon to the day's catch with 1 more trap to check for beaver.
On to the next critter.
Well, there's no critter waiting for Laramy in this conibear. That's all right. Laramy's got plenty of work with the ones he's already taken.
You know, these weasels, when you're skinning these little suckers, you got to be really careful because their hide is really delicate, especially on the underbelly side. And it's really, really easy to rip them. So I don't even hardly use my knife. I do almost everything with my fingers. That way you can take it nice and slow. It's not a race. You ask most true trappers what their pride is in trapping, and it's a finished product of a hide. You know, some people mount deer on their walls and stuff like that. Well, as a trapper, your mount is your hide, your finished product. So, you know, you have had a lot of hard work going into that. You want to make sure you take care of it properly. You know, these little pelts like this are really good for making little bullet bags or small little bags for whatever you want to use them for. You know, storing mountain Indies to store tobacco in little bags like this. And there's your little weasel skin. Now it's just time to stretch it. And there you are. Now it's just a waiting game. You know, the mountain men back in the day, they'd go out and check their traps every single morning. Well, as soon as they got those beavers back to the shoreline, they'd skin them right there. They'd use the beaver meat for bait for black bear, wolf, and stuff like that. They would take their hides back to camp. They'd put them on a O-ring of willow, usually, because willow bends really easy, to stretch the hide. As soon as it dried, they would package it and bundle it. And they would put big bundles, it's like a hay bale. They couldn't afford for these hides to go bad. They had to get them out and get them dried quick, get them baled up, and get them to the buyer so that they could get their money. There it is. Brown gold. The only thing they really trapped was beaver. That was big money on the market. But obviously every once in a while they'd catch a coon or any kind of water animal in those beaver traps. I haven't quite figured out what I'm gonna do with this coon skin yet, but I can promise you this hide looks so nice that I'll figure something out.
Finishing up on this coon hide, Laramy takes his time, taking pride in his harvest of furs.
Now that, my friends, is one beautiful coon hide. Old Daniel Boone would be proud.
You know, as I sit here and reflect on my life as a modern day mountain man, the ones that came before me, the struggles that they went through, makes me appreciate my everyday life. Yeah, some people might look at me like I'm crazy, but I truly enjoy it. And yeah, I'm not successful every time, but you know what? I do pretty dang good. And I'm not gonna complain because I love the way I live.
A sight for the eyes of God, the poet says. But darkness may lay behind those dancing lights.
You know, it's always amazing to me how wild this country really is. It's built for a mountain man. Something happens to you up here, you better know what you're doing or you're probably gonna be carried out in a body bag. It's a get tough or die out here. I'm a sucker for a challenge, and if I can make it a little bit tougher on myself, I'm gonna try it. I'm all about the experience and the memory.
The real Alaskan gold is what you bring back in your memories.
I gotta eat too, but that experience lasts with you a lot longer than a trophy on the wall or food in your belly.
Alaska is not just for the taking, but if you work hard enough, it might just pay off for you.
Have me some caribou backstrap tonight. Now that's what I'm talking about. When you're up here in the middle of nowhere, I don't pack very much in. So I'm relying on myself and my knowledge to find food. I'll be honest with you, there's times you might only eat once a day or not hardly have anything all day. There's plenty of fish to catch. There's cranberries all throughout these big open tundras. And then get lucky and get a caribou on the ground. Once that hits and I actually do get a caribou on the ground, ooh boy, then I live like a king.
Looks like the Laramy barbecue is ready for business.
You know, one of my favorite ways to cook is to dig a hole and make a mountain man pressure cooker. You dig a hole about 1.5 feet, 2 foot deep. You line the bottom with coals. You lay whatever it is, whether it's a fish, a grouse, red meat, you lay it down, put coals on top of it, and then you bury it. You let it sit for 3 or 4 hours. And I'll tell you what, it's just as efficient as a pressure cooker at home and a lot safer. So for me, I go off hunting. I'm gonna come back and I've got dinner. No effort, I don't have to stay up and cook it. It's done. There's a big herd of caribou moving along the base of this little ridge right here. They're probably gonna cross the river down here. If I hurry, I might be able to cut them off.
Distances in Alaska are not like anywhere else, as is befitting a great country.
They're already down on the riverbank. I'm gonna have to hurry and get up here. I'm never gonna catch them.
Laramy's got to work low and slow now to get within bent stick shooting range.
There's a whole herd of caribou right here. They're about 130 yards away. But there's about 100 eyes. They're just kind of milling around. They're not really moving, so I'm gonna try to sneak up, see if I can't get 40 yards and get a shot. Right there, about 80 yards. I gotta cut that distance at least in half. There's caribou spread all over right here. There's a really big bull there in the back. Now on this side of the river, there's a bunch more caribou coming this way from the other side of the river. This is absolutely crazy. Got bulls fighting everywhere. There's caribou all over the place. You couldn't ask to be in a better position. I'm literally surrounded by caribou.
This also puts Laramy in a position to hear a unique sound of the Arctic. Call it tundra music.
You know, caribou are really cool because their hooves click really loud when they are trotting or running across the tundra or through the woods. Just click, 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 click. It's because their ankles are adjusted to go over that rough, uneven ground, and so they click all the time. And they've got huge feet. But what that's for is for when they're running across these big open tundras, it's so they don't fall through and they have a lot better footing because they have a big platform. It's amazing, all these animals, they have certain traits for certain reasons.
what just spooked them, but they just took off running.
I turn around to head back towards camp, and bear's sitting there watching me in the woods.
Under the northern lights, Laramy Miller is stalking the caribou. So far, it's been a success, but that may be about to change.
I don't know what just spooked them, but they just took off running.
That was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there was probably thousands, and I'm just, about 45 is my max. That's as far as I'm gonna shoot. But I tell you what, that was absolutely unreal. Crazy. On to the next one.
Every step you take in Alaska is an adventure. But you always have to remember that an adventure could just be what you call a disaster after you're safe and sound back home.
Been here a majority of the day. Haven't seen anything move through. But it's only about the 4th round. We've still got time. I have to swing a haymaker.
I'm heading back to the river to wash my sins away. Back to the river every single day. I hope the good Lord will deliver my soul at the river.
I should be close to done. Tell you what, all that work paid off. That's the best I've cooked all week.
And swift they pranced with their silver feet and pierced with a blinding blaze. Robert W. Service.
It's getting a little frustrating. So much country up here that if they're not there, they're not there. You're not gonna find them. You walk in circles for 5 days and wear yourself out and never see a thing. It's just too warm. I mean, clear blue skies. We need a nice cold to get them caribou moving and start migrating. And they're taking their sweet time.
But even with ideal migration weather, the caribou may not be sticking to the time-honored trail.
We don't give them enough credit for being as smart as they really are.
It was written in the earth below.
They migrate upwards of 1,500 miles a year. When you think about that, that's halfway across the United States. And they don't go the same route every year.
It was signified in the sky above.
They will go one route one year and then switch and go another route another year so that they're not overgrazing the areas that they're migrating.
And as you travel through this world alone, over mountain high and valley low,
You got 20, 30, 40,000 caribou coming down one stretch. They can overgraze that really quick, but they adjust every single year and go a different route. I mean, their instincts are unbelievable.
and if you lose your way, it will guide you home.
We often underestimate the intelligence of these animals, but that's why they've been around for thousands of years.
At least, if the caribou are coming this way, Laramy may have the cold weather to mosey them along. country and a tightrope between disaster and reward. Laramy hopes he can get into killing distance of a good bull, but there are risks to overcome that are unique to the North.
You know me, I'm from the Rockies. You bring me up here to Alaska, it's a whole different story. The elements are just that much more unforgiving. It can go from 40 degrees to negative 30 in the matter of hours, so you have to be prepared. Chased some caribou, they went up, they got too far out of sight. I turned around to go walk and head back towards camp, and I'd be dang if there ain't a big brown bear track following my tracks. You run face to face with a 600-700 pound bear that is 9 foot tall, it can get interesting in a hurry. I just walked through there, so his tracks were on top of mine. I mean, that bear's sitting there watching me in the woods. The last thing you want to do is run, because then that turns into a game for the bear. He looks at you as prey. I think I'm gonna head back to camp and get my Hawken, because I do believe my odds are a little bit better with some hot lead rather than a pointy object and a stick and string.
St. Louis brothers Jacob and Samuel Hawken crafted the first famed gun bearing their name in 1823 and changed the mountain men's lives. For hunting, their Rocky Mountain rifle had more range and accuracy and hit harder than the far longer and heavier Kentucky rifle. Typically, between 50 and 53 caliber, Hawkens could be chambered as large as 68 caliber, big enough to drop any buffalo or bear in its tracks. Never mass-produced, each rifle was made by hand. An original Hawken is today worth $50,000, and even Indians were envious and respectful of the Hawken. Mr. Grizz ain't the only thing to watch out for in the bush of Alaska. Along with all the natural disasters waiting to befall a hunter, there are some man-made ones too. Caribou are to the Arctic what buffalo were to the plains. Yet, for Laramy, they're proven as elusive as gold nuggets. And he's not alone in hunting them. It's time to reevaluate and to rearm. But that doesn't mean he'll remain perfectly safe.
In the Rockies, every canyon leads to a river which will lead to civilization. In Alaska, it might lead to civilization, but it might be 200, 300, 400 miles away. Something happens to you up here, you better know what you're doing, or you're probably going to be carried out in a body bag.
No, I always preach gun safety and muzzle safety. Know which way your muzzle's pointing. And I always carry my gun over my shoulder with the muzzle pointed forward, because I always have somebody behind me. I mean, it just goes to show you how freak accidents happen. I've handled guns my entire life. Today I blew my finger off. And I always carry a cap on my muzzleloader because I don't want the moisture to get in, because I've had a lot of misfires out there. Well, guess what? I'll never carry a hot cap on a muzzleloader again. I mean, look at that. In the middle of the Alaskan woods, literally 40, 50 miles from nowhere. There's no roads. There's no nothing. I mean, it could have turned serious real fast. You know, accidents can happen. Just be careful. Don't ever think that you're above it. I always thought, oh, that's never going to happen to me. You know, I've done this my whole life. Always think twice. I got too complacent and shoelace, tourniquet out of my shoelace. I'm just thankful it was just a finger. And if I'd had that muzzle facing backwards, could have been the cameraman. I can tell you from now on, I'd rather miss out on an animal than have that cap on that muzzleloader, because I got a family to go home to.
You know, this has been one of the toughest years of my life. Go up to Alaska and have an accident, blow my finger off. Just a crazy, crazy ordeal. What happened, I'm not really sure, but all I know is I was walking through some thick brush. My rifle got pulled out of my hands, and the next thing I know, my finger's gone. But believe it or not, that was a blessing. I'm fortunate I did that. It may sound crazy, but because of that, that got me out of the woods. I was close to civilization. And 6 days later, my appendix ruptured. Well, I think somebody's looking out for me because, you know, Lewis and Clark only lost one person on that entire expedition all the way across the United States. You wanna know what he died of? A ruptured appendix. I lost 40 pounds. It was a rough fall, but I look back and think I ain't got it too bad.
The measure of a man is like the meaning of a mountain. It's not in feet of elevation, but in how strong it stands.
I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. I got pretty lucky. You know, missing finger, that ain't too bad. Can always be worse. Be thankful for what you have today, because it might not be there tomorrow. Well, this has been one of those years that I'd almost like to forget, but you know, things happen in life sometimes that put a new meaning towards what you do or how you live your life. I was hunting caribou up in Alaska, middle of the bush, middle of nowhere, and I had an accident. See some caribou, get excited. I unsling my muzzle loader, throw a cap on, start after these caribou. I'm going through some thick alders, probably 10 foot tall. And I threw the gun over my shoulder like I always do, and I ducked under, and the gun got caught, and it pulled it right out of my hand. Well, when it got caught, the hammer got caught on a branch. And so when it pulled it out of my hands, the hammer came back just a little bit, and then when it slid out of my hand, it came forward. Well, it hit that cap just hard enough to make it go off, and blew my finger clean off. But believe it or not, that was a blessing, because I had just gotten to Alaska. I was scheduled to be there another couple weeks, middle of nowhere. And 6 days after I blew my finger off, I had to have an emergency appendectomy because my appendix was about to rupture. So I think somebody was looking out for me when I blew my finger off, because I was 170 miles from the closest town. And if my appendix would have ruptured 170 miles in the bush, I probably wouldn't have made it out. And you know, it kind of puts a new meaning to life and a new outlook on things. You know, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer of that. There's been too many times, but I'm really thankful that I made it out with only the loss of a finger, because it could have been a lot worse. And you know, I got a family to go home to, and I got to put food on the table for them. So for me, it was a blessing. Yeah, it don't feel too swell, but I'm good to go now. I got elk to chase here in Montana, and that's what I'm gonna go do. It's time to get back in the game, and I gotta put meat in the freezer somehow.
Luckily for Laramy, horse and beaver didn't all go down the river on him. And like he says, he gets to come back to his Montana country and see if he can hang some elk quarters from the meat pole. Oh, there is indeed plenty to be thankful for. Just being upright and walking is one mighty powerful thing. Even better is all that there may be to see every time you crest a ridge.
We got 6 bighorn rams right here in front of me. That's what makes the hunt for me. This is what it's all about. Just being out here in God's country, loving every minute of it. I've seen everything but elk. Let's go find some elk.
Pretty tough hunting conditions right now. It's the end of October. We should already have snow up here, but you got to deal with what old Mother Nature gives you. And I'm just going to keep going, working this ridgetop, blasting down in all these canyons, and sooner or later I'll find some elk that are moving. But I think what's happened right now is there have been some wolves howling on the sides of the canyon here, and I think they've got all them elk kind of scared, so they're down in the thick trees. But maybe we can get lucky and find that one bull that's up moving around.
These are conditions that every elk hunter dreads. Dry, noisy, and warm, like hunting in a potato chip factory.
I finally found some elk, and now I just got to figure out how to get over there and get on them. You can see all the signs. They're here. You just got to figure out where they went. That's what I'm here for. There's a group of elk up here on this hillside, and all I see is a spike in there. I don't want to shoot a spike, but that's a good sign. Where there's elk, there's going to be bulls somewhere.
They always say you can't eat antlers, but Laramy knows the kind of bull he's looking for, and he can hope for something better than a spike. It's all fine to the top of the ridge. Then the elk are lighting out for the territories.
Well, just jumped a herd of about 30 elk. There was 2 shooter bulls in it. I don't know what happened, but I crested over and they were at 30 yards. They already knew I was coming. Blew out, went across the canyon. It is what it is. That's why they call it hunting. Close but no cigar. Just keep on keeping on.
A lot of people would walk through here not seeing any elk up here in these big opens and say, there ain't no elk there. You can see all the signs. They're here. You just got to figure out where they went. They didn't just up and vanish. They were all 3 of them. You can see where they bedded down a bunch. This right here is bull elk urine. And it's still, it's not cold yet. So it's probably an hour and a half, 2 hours old.
I'm getting calls. I'm just gonna keep working my way through this and hopefully I can get lucky.
Hunting elk means being willing to go the extra mile, or it seems to rub yourself all over with fresh elk urine.
You think of the mountain man 200 years ago, you think of Hugh Glass, getting his face ripped off by a grizzly bear, left for dead, and made it 300 miles back to the closest settlement. 300 miles, half dead, broken bones, ripped off face. It's one tough hombre.
Hugh Glass was ancient, all of 40, when the she-bear and the cubs tore him front and back. 3-inch claws slashing to the bone, 1,200 pounds of bite force puncturing flesh. With hostiles closing in, Fitzgerald and young Bridger only abandoned him when they were certain he was going under. Of course, Fitzgerald did lift his rifle and possibles, as seemed only fair. But Hugh bamboozled them. With maggots infesting his wounds, he set his own shattered leg and started to crawl, gaining stamina from buffalo berries mashed with water and roots dug from the dirt. By scavenging meat, Glass made it back to civilization by way of the river. But 9 hard winters later, a group of Indians finished the job that the bear had commenced.
Tell you what, that's disheartening. Been following this bull for, 5 hours, gone about 3 or 4 miles. Only for him to cross the fence and be gone. That's private land over there and can't go on it, so I'm gonna have to go back that way and go find me another bull to chase around. It's a long walk back up the mountain.
You can definitely tell there's a storm coming in. It dropped about 10 degrees since daylight. It was really warm last night. So I think the clouds and the storm moving in pushed that hot air in and then pushed it out, and now you can feel it's getting cold. Probably gonna have snow tomorrow, I'm guessing. There've been some wolves howling on the sides of the canyon here, and I think they've got all them elk kind of scared, so they're down in the thick trees, but maybe we can get lucky and find that one bull that's up moving around.
More and more in the West, though, hunters are sharing the game with the wolf.
The next couple of days ought to be really good elk hunting. There's a lot of elk. That's what I'm here for.
This country means more than anything to Laramy Miller. Recovering from Alaska, he has a chance to put elk meat in the larder. His work's cut out for him, though, and the fact that he's sharing the hunt with wolves don't make it any easier.
I finally found some elk clear across the canyon. Normally you come out here and there's so much feed, so much cover that they're scattered all over the place. So pretty much anywhere you go, you have the possibility of running into elk. Well, later in the season, what happens is the wolves move in. They come from further down in the wilderness, and they're moving out trying to catch elk migrating, elk and deer migrating out to the lower country. Well, the wolves have showed up, so it's made them elk, they don't want to hardly move. So what the elk do is they just kind of group up and they'll stay in some thick cover and just barely come out a little bit and eat, and so it makes it tough to find them. But they're all the way over on the other side. And now it's raining.
Bad news, it's raining. Good news, rain may turn to snow, making it for better hunting.
You know, the snow can mean a couple things. It can be really good because it gets them elk up and moving around, and that'll make it easier on me hunting-wise. But if we get too much snow, it can also push them clean out of here and they'll head down into their wintering ranges. So the next couple of days ought to be really good elk hunting, but after that, it might be slim pickings. There's a reason the mountain man didn't stay way up high in the winters. It's pretty, but like they used to call it, white death.
Well, at this stage, there's no point getting head up about the snow. It's gonna do whatever it wants anyhow. Best to let it have its way, at least until daylight. A night of snow can soften the ground and show fresh tracks if the elk are still in the high country.
Well, winter comes quick and night lonesome. Gonna make it even tougher on me. This snow's gonna start pushing these critters down. I might want to think about start packing up and moving with them. I'll give her one more shot though. This ought to help hunting conditions out a little bit. Be able to find a bull track and at least figure out where they're at, where they're going. It's been tough, but that's all part of it. It's called hunting for a reason. If you just went out and shot one every time, it'd be called shooting. You never know exactly where you're gonna find elk, but they have been moving back and forth between this canyon and the canyon behind me because this is an area where there's no roads, no anything. It's all walking or horseback. And so my thought, go to the top, hike all the way through, go on a little walkabout. When I say little, I mean about 14 miles by the time it's all said and done. I'll be a tired little feller when I get back to camp, but when you're elk hunting, you gotta put in the work.
The work isn't just walking though. Done right, elk hunting means a good bit of time behind a binocular too. And this work has paid off.
That's what I'm here for. There's a lot of elk. I guess we'll see what happens.
A troublesome year has left Laramy counting his blessings, and he has his hopes set on elk for winter meat. More than anything else, though, he's happy to be in the mountains again, where he may have just found a bull. Now he just needs to get in range.
I can smell elk. That usually means they're pretty close.
For Laramy now, it's gonna take all his senses to find the herd.
Well, I got a bunch of elk down here in the bottom. Probably a dozen elk.
I'm gonna have to hustle if I want to get to them in time. There's a lot of elk. I guess we'll see what happens.
The first payoff from the fresh snow is clear for Laramy to see.
Got a whole herd of elk. Went through right here this morning. It's not very old. I'm just gonna keep easing through here. I bet they're bedded in this draw right in these trees, so I'm just gonna go slow, ease my way, and hopefully I can see them before they see me.
Just slow and steady. The only thing that's gonna stop me from killing him is running out of daylight. I can't see them, so they're just right on top of this. I'm gonna pop up, they're gonna be 30 yards, so it's gonna happen quick.
Once again, in an unpredictable year, things don't go as expected. The wind shifts, and the elk herd makes for black timber.
Tough critters. Something smelled us.
Well, I finally made it all the way over here, and those elk are just cresting the ridge. And there's no way I'm gonna catch up with them. My uncle used to tell me, hunt smarter, not harder. I'm not gonna go try to chase those elk down.
Well, the snow's still lightly coming down, and I'm making an executive decision with myself. I'm packing up and heading down. I don't want to get caught up here in the snow. I didn't get an elk. High country elk hunting for this year, I do believe, is pretty much over. But I was still in the high lonesome, and maybe I'll have some luck down lower. Because Lord knows I need some meat bad. It's been a rough year, but all I know is hard work and keep trying.
What matters up here on the white peaks or down in the shadowy draws is having another season to make your way along the trails and tracks, following the sun and the moon and the wild game.
Well, see you on the next adventure.
That's the way it goes sometimes. It is hunting. The country that I like to hunt is definitely not the easiest country. Some of it's thick. It's all steep. You're at Mother Nature's will. But then you sit here and you look out across all this, and how can you be mad or disappointed? I can't. It's not always about the kill. Mother Nature is pretty amazing.
Every season has its own special set of chores for a mountain man.
Well, it's springtime, spring cleaning, time to reshoe these horses and trim them up a little bit. Get them ready for the high country. All I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna give them some grain while I'm tinkering with him. First thing, I gotta yank these shoes off. You can tell these shoes are getting, his feet are getting a little long. I'm just gonna yank these off.
Unshoeing a horse takes more than unlacing a pair of high tops.
You can tell right here he's getting long. You want it to come down about right in there. So I'll go through and I'll trim all this out. Make it nice and flat with the rasp. Well, you can probably tell by my posture why this isn't a good job for a guy my size. It's real similar to, you know, cutting your fingernails. Now I'm just gonna rasp it and get it all nice and flat and filed down.
Indians rode unshod ponies. So did the mountain men most of the time. By taking careful care of their horses' hooves and having remudas of extra steeds, the mountain men could avoid sore feet on their horses. Or sometimes they'd make buffalo hide moccasins for protection. Most days, it was a luxury to have iron shoes on your horse.
Yeah, those shoes aren't gonna work.
I need new shoes. So it looks like I'm gonna have to head down to the blacksmith in town and have him make me some up. Don't worry, Doc, I'll be back.
Spring snow means getting good gripping shoes on your horse is a must. Making it time to turn to the ancient arts of the blacksmith. This here's Master Blacksmith Eric Dewey.
Eric, how the heck are you?
Hey, Laramy. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Laramy and Eric go way back. Many a time they've taken orange glowing metal and, with their own strength and skill, beaten and forged it into some invaluable tool for the trail or camp or homestead. And Laramy's never had a complaint about how Eric's tools hold up.
What are you making?
Just working on this rocking chair, trying to wrap it up today.
Is that what that is?
Yep,
Pretty cool looking. I think that thing actually might support me without breaking.
might.
So the whole reason I came over, I'm running low on horseshoes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You think we can bang a few horseshoes out?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I have a creaser, so we might have to start with that.
That'd be cool. We'll get that in too, make it a creaser for us.
Yeah, let's grab some tools and get to work.
Sounds good. You know what would be really cool is if you kind of gave us a little demonstration of a lot of the different tools that you use and make here.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, Eric, so a normal person that knows nothing about blacksmithing is gonna walk up to this table and say, wow, you got a lot of the same kind of tools it looks like. I mean, you got some hammers, you got some tongs, some punches. I mean, what's something like this used for?
This is your general purpose blacksmithing hammer. It's a cross peen hammer, 2.5 pound.
And, you know, something like that.
This is a struck tool, so this is called a flatter. So you're gonna be holding this on your workpiece, and then this will be struck either by another person, a striker with a sledgehammer, or by yourself.
And then you got this, you know, it's got the little twist with the peen on it. What's something like that used for?
This is called a punch. It's a diagonal punch. When you're standing at the anvil, you can sight down the working end of the tool, rather than if the business end is in line with your handle. You can get up next to your workpiece and you can see exactly what you're doing.
Okay, I see there's 3 different types of tongs there. What's the function and difference?
This particular pair of tongs is your bread and butter flat jaw tong for holding any sort of flat bar. They're sized for 1/2 inch. These are called bolt jaw tongs, and the bit of the tong is formed to accept round bar, like that. So you can easily grasp round bar.
Nice. I love education. What tools are we gonna need?
We'll need these hammers. We'll need a slot punch, drift, and a pair of tongs. Get them full, and some material.
Perfect. Get to work.
To about 1900.
Right here, all the way around the horseshoe.
God dog is what the Indians called the horse. But unlike dogs, horses need shoeing.
Those shoes aren't gonna work.
It's time to get to the blacksmith shop. These are the tools of Master Smith Eric Dewey. Now, it's time to see the art of the master blacksmith.
Okay, so for all the people at home that don't understand the process, walk us through it.
So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get our material up to temperature, and then we're gonna punch a slot with this 45-degree slot punch straight into there. And that is the first step to forming the eye. Once that's done, we'll go to the struck end and form it into a lazy octagon. After that's completed, we'll go into the business end and form the actual creaser.
And so for the people that don't know what a creaser is what makes this slot right here all the way around the horseshoe. And that's what seats your nail head
into the shoe so it's not sticking out. It'd be like walking on pebbles if you didn't have that crease. So let's get started.
So in the wintertime, if I have a fire going, I'll just use coals from the stove to light the coke forge.
Then what temperature is ideal for a piece of steel that size?
For this particular steel, we're looking at getting it up to about 1900 and then working from there.
Ooh, nice and warm.
Tasty.
The right temperatures, something smiths know by seeing. Orange-yellow is the ideal forge temperature for shaping steel. Watching a blacksmith transform iron and steel, you can see how people once thought there was something magic and mystical about their work.
All right, Laramy, we're just gonna keep going through this hole. You don't need to hit it super hard. Just get this through, and then we'll flip it over. Okay. Yep. Good. Good.
Heat, hammer, reheat. It's how the blacksmith instills the spirit of the forge into the steel.
So as you can tell, the way that this forge works, there's a blower that's blowing air up through. That's what heats up all the coke. And he's got a lever that just controls the airflow, similar to a vent on your car. Naturally, the more air you have, the more heat. You know, it's always interesting. I work with my hands in a different way, making buckskins and bows and rifles and stuff like that. Well, Eric's doing the same thing, he's just working with metal. And there's something to be said about working with your hands and taking something and completely forming it to whatever you need. You know, that's what the mountain men had to do back in the day. They had to make do with what they had. And blacksmithing was a huge deal in the West in the mid-1800s because everybody needed it. You know, there was blacksmithing shops going up everywhere, just like Jiffy Lubes today. I mean, people had to have, whether it was horseshoes or hammers or anything like that, they had to have them. Mountain men, they needed their traps. They needed hammers and stuff when they're out in the woods. It's been around for a long time. And it's neat to see, you know, people like Eric that are still doing it essentially the way it was done in the 1800s. A lot of labor. You know, there's not very many people that want to put that much work in.
As a modern mountain man, Laramy Miller needs his horses well shod. Master blacksmith Eric Dewey makes the shoes and the tools to make the shoes. With Laramy, he's literally going at it, not to coin a phrase, hammer and tong.
Look at that, Squatch. Perfect.
That's what I like to hear. Never know, I might make a blacksmith yet. I'm not just Paul Bunyan in the woods.
All right, Laramy, so what we want to do next is using that same tool, bring this business end down to a nice taper with the same tool, the flatter, and then once we get it roughed out, we can clean it up with a rasp.
Yeah, and once we get that done, all that's left to do is make the handle.
That's right.
That's something we temporarily overlooked at the beginning.
We did.
It's kind of hard to swing a hammer without a handle.
Extremely. Okay, so what we need to do now, Laramy, is we'll come in with the rasp and we'll knock about half of that mass down on one side to get our 45-degree angle.
Okay.
And then we'll come in on the other side with the rasp and dive straight into it.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Cool.
The intense intense heat of a forge is what it takes to raise steel to the red-hot temperature required to hammer it into the shape you intend. Tools for shaping steel mean more than hammers and anvils.
Well, while he's finishing that up, I've got this piece of wood, a planer, and a rasp, and I'm just gonna round out this wood and make a handle. I'll round it all out, taper the end, be good to go. And just remember, this is just the work we're putting in to make the tools to make the horseshoes that I need and whatever else.
In the scent of wood shavings, you're reminded of how blacksmithing is more than just forging metal. The handle to hold the tool is just as important.
Before Laramy and I can put this tool to work, it needs to be heat treated. And what that entails is heating up the end of the tool and quenching it in water, which will make the business end fully hard. And then we'll draw temper from residual heat in the eye. And tempering it is essentially taking out some of the hardness in the working end of the tool. And once that's done, we'll hang the handle on it that Laramy made, and we'll put it to work.
I'm just waiting on you.
All right, man.
To the 3 H's of blacksmithing, heating, holding, hitting, must be added quenching. Cooling regulates hardness, with water quenching making steel the hardest, at the risk of brittleness.
You got it, Laramy.
Huh. Well, what do you think? We're gonna put our creaser to the test.
Springtime, and time to put some new shoes on old Dobbin. This village smithy goes by the name of Eric Dewey, a master of his craft. Steel and forge, hammer and skill, all it takes to make you whatever you need.
Huh. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll do the trick. I'm gonna put it to work.
Yeah, now we gotta make the horseshoes.
So this is our starting stock. It's 1/2 by 3/4 inch. Find the center point. We'll get it hot. We'll come in and we'll round the corners off, both sides.
So, how do they make coke?
Coke is essentially a distillate of coal, and just like charcoal is a distillate of wood. So all of the volatile compounds are essentially baked out of coal, and what you're left with is an extremely dense chunk of carbon.
So when they put it in the oven, bring it out, is that what it looks like? I notice you have a bigger...
Yeah, it comes out in big chunks, and then for what I'm doing with it, it needs to be crushed. This is your fresh out of the oven coke.
You know, it's kind of crazy because it's really light. It feels like lava rock and looks a lot like lava rock, but the only difference is this burns. Pretty interesting. You know, a nice part about this is I can actually contribute.
A good thing about having Laramy around the blacksmith shop is that you never lack for muscle power.
Well, now that we've got a couple of horseshoes roughed out, we're gonna put our creaser to the test. We're gonna put that crease around half of the horseshoe so you can put the nail heads in there. We're gonna see if it works. Let's hope.
Now that we got the crease in the side of that, he's just gonna punch a couple holes, flip it over, repeat the exact same process on the other side. There'll be one horseshoe done. We got quite a few of these to make, so we're just gonna get after it.
One side done, about 100 to go.
Looking good though, looking good.
Once you get the steel to the right heat, then you can shape it, crease it, and pierce it as you need. As the blacksmith has done for thousands of years.
Well, Eric, I think I actually have enough horseshoes to throw on a few horses, so I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Helping me out of a bind.
My pleasure.
Maybe I'll have to bring you some elk meat by or something.
Yeah, we can do that.
There you go.
You can keep this as a souvenir. You might need it later. I'll make myself a new one.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. You know, it's nice when you actually make a tool that serves a purpose and works.
Agreed.
Well, thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Drive safe, Laramy.
It's time now to nail on some two-tones.
Mountain Man tools, and I even got a consolation prize going out the door. Can't beat that.
As a famous mountaineer once said, I am learning nothing in this trivial world of men. I must break away and get out into the mountains to learn the news. They say over every mountain there's a path, not seen from the valley.
You look all through there for miles. There's not a road, a house, nothing. That right there is the start of the biggest wilderness area in the lower 48. Believe it or not, it's my backyard. There's a reason they call it the Rocky Mountains.
If you want to go elk hunting in the Rocky Mountains, be prepared to work. It's definitely not a vacation. And the more I can challenge myself and try to hone my skills, I mean, you're constantly learning every day. It keeps me coming back year after year. This is an old camp spot that I've had for quite a while, and everything's rusted to heck and beat to heck from the weather, so I'm having to kind of work on the fly. Well, I'm doing this quick, but I've got all the sides up. Now I just need to get the wood stove in there and get it cooking so I can make some dinner.
Up here, all you have for protection are canvas walls, a wood fire, and a good rifle. The true big game of the high country, it's not the sheep, the goat, or even the grizzly. The one most at home on the peaks is the Rocky Mountain elk.
Elk are definitely my favorite animal to hunt. But on the same token, they're probably the most frustrating animal to hunt sometimes.
You just look at the country they live in. They have such diversity that they can go through, whether it's up above tree line, down into the thick timber. You got little open meadows in between all this thick timber, and some flat ground, some straight up and down. And they move 10, 15 miles in one day. You know, they get smart. More predators than normal. They start learning that stay on the move and make big circles, and they'll stay alive. Well, it makes it tough on me because being in the right place at the right time takes a little bit of the skill out of the game, but I still love every minute of it.
Of all the elk senses, you might fool his eyes and ears, but you won't ever fool his nose.
Right there goes to show you how smart an elk is. Knew something was up. As soon as it saw something it didn't like, it circled, got the wind in its favor, circled downwind to smell me, and ran off. So close, yet so far.
Laramy knows that shooting iron sights makes the range all the more critical.
Well, that's about 300 yards. Could be done. I don't blame people for doing it. But you know what? You feel a lot better about yourself at the end of the day when you can get up within 100, 150 yards of an animal and know that you outsmarted it. Or in cases like this, he outsmarted you.
Funny thing is, at 100 yards, a hunter can get a good whiff of an elk about as fast as the elk can get a whiff of him.
When you're hunting elk and it's not the rut, it's really hard to get close enough for primitive weapons. This hunt, after my little accident, can't quite hold my big Hawken as steady as I'd like to, so I've got an old lever action 30-30 that is a good brush gun, you know, good gun for this type of country, except for you gotta be 200 yards or closer.
Today, though, rifle caliber may be less important than the number in quicksilver on the thermometer.
Sun hasn't been up for 30 minutes and it's already probably 50, 60 degrees. Not a good sign for elk hunting. You add in that there's a few wolves in the area, so they got the elk kind of boogered. I think they're down in these bowls in the thick timber. One, it's cooler, there's lush feed down there, but for two, to get away from the predators. Seen a lot of tracks this morning.
Look up elk country in the dictionary, and this is what you'll see. An old shooting iron means closing the range.
So close.
And now on the mountain, there's new competition for the elk.
You know, you gotta adapt to every situation that you're in. For example, here, we're hunting Idaho and Montana. And the elk hunting is so much different than, let's say, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, places like that. You still have decent numbers of elk. Yeah, the numbers are on the decline because of wolves. But the biggest thing that the wolves have done is they've made it to where you can never guess what the elk are gonna do. You go out and find an elk herd at night, there's no guarantee they're gonna be in that same area the next morning because wolves could come in, they could push them 20 miles away. They're making it almost impossible to hunt them because they're making it to where the elk don't want to call. They're pushing the elk nonstop all over the place. If they don't kill them, half the elk that are carrying calves, they abort them. So they're really putting a stress on the elk herd. Whereas if you're in Colorado or Utah or places like that, more than likely you find a herd of elk at one night, the next morning they're going to be in that same general area. but you have to adapt and change your tactics everywhere you go.
Every full-grown elk you see in the fall has survived the winter. Bad weather, in fact, gets them up and moving, makes for better hunting. But elk don't have a monopoly on toughness.
Funny story, my uncle, he actually had to leave a couple horses because they just flat couldn't make it through the snow. Left them there, couldn't get back in until the following spring. 2 horses and a mule. When he came back that next year, a couple of them were still alive, just fat and sassy, eating all the new green grass coming up. It takes a tough critter to survive up here in the winter.
The nice thing about a horse is it sounds a lot like an elk when it's walking through the woods, but you can cover so much country. Seen a lot of tracks this morning, a couple bull tracks. Actually saw a herd of about 60 elk. So I'm just gonna keep on making my way and hopefully I can find a single bull track by himself that I can get off and go follow. It's just a matter of time. You know, it's not a good idea to eat too much snow when you're out here like this. You think tall. You know, snow turned to water. What it does is it brings your body temperature way down and puts you at risk of hypothermia. But it tastes so good.
As appetizing as snow might be, protecting yourself against it could mean life or death. The mountains never played favorites with man or animal, as the old trappers knew very well. Winter weather howled in like a scalded dog, and the only protection was warm fur or hide on your back. What wild critters wore to stave off the freezing temperatures, mountain men could wear too. Along with keeping in the warmth, furs help shed wet snow. Also breathe while a man works. A fur robe makes for fine sleep. A hunter has to borrow his fur, but with the right clothes from the right animals, a man can survive well when the weather turns white.
That bull's been living right here.
Come on, keep going. Keep going. There's that little bit of attitude. Don't worry, we'll run that right out of you.
Elk country reaches all the way to the summits, and getting the range can stretch an old rifle. Now Laramy hopes that snow may show him the way to better hunting.
That bull's been living right here.
You know, the snow changes completely how you need to hunt these elk. Now that I got snow, I can just put the miles on, find a bull track, and see where he's going and try to figure out exactly how to get after him.
The thing about tracks, they don't guarantee a thing unless an elk is standing in them.
Well, I got on this bull track way up at the top. It looks like he's wounded. He keeps dragging his back left leg. But I followed him probably 2 miles already. And he just turned. He's a smart old bull. He just turned in his same tracks, walked the trail back, and then cut up. And I thought maybe another bull had come by, but tough critters, running out of daylight.
After miles in the snow, Laramy's ready to trade boot hide for some saddle leather.
When you get snow like this, you gotta be really careful. I'm gonna have to pull the shoes off this horse tonight because he's slipping and sliding all over the place, and that's just asking for an accident.
Even before worrying about the bottoms of a horse's hooves comes worrying about what's between its ears.
Well, being it's a beautiful day out, I think I'm gonna go catch up that paint. I picked him up from a guy who got bucked off and broke his hip, so I'm in charge of the task of taming him down a little bit. We'll see how it goes. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put him in a round pen. This horse, I just don't think he's had anybody really sit down and work with him since he was broke as a colt. By the end of it, me and him gonna be buddies. Come on, keep going. There's that little bit of attitude. Don't worry, we'll run that right out of you. Keep going. The biggest thing for me is I have to get him to trust me, but I also need to get him to know that there's a time for work and there's a time for play. That didn't open up yet. Quit being lazy. Get up there. When he's running around in a circle, you're pushing towards that opposite shoulder to keep him moving. Open up. Been a long time since he's been worked, but he still remembers all his groundwork. You remember, huh? Whenever you open up with both hands, that's telling him, you know, you're opening yourself up. You want him to stop and face you. Good boy. It's all about trust.
From the backs of paint ponies, the Indians ran buffalo and rode to war. And it was Indian paints that the mountain men traded for the finest remounts.
You know, a horse like this, if you look at him, he's so powerful. That's the kind of horse that a big man like me loves to see. I like to make sure that horse, I got a good understanding of him before I ever climb on his back. There ain't nothing wrong with this horse. Put a little work into him, he'll be awesome. Just got a little bit of spirit. It's just like teaching kids. Every kid is different. You just got to know how to control that energy and move it in the right direction. Come on. Good boy. Well, he's got a pretty good sweat going. I think that's probably enough for today. You don't want to do too much in one day. I'm just going to keep repeating this process. I might do it a couple times a day, but just to let him know he's here to work. There's time for work, time for play, and I'm the boss. And every once in a while, we get to have fun too. Huh, buddy?
It's been 3 days since we saw our last elk.
Laramy's looking to lay down an elk for winter's meat, but the weather and animals, they ain't quite cooperating.
So close.
All you can do is press on. If the snow comes, it might be enough to show you where the elk are, or the elk may show you how hard they can make it for a mountain man.
Tough critters.
Now, even the snow is vanishing. And with it, maybe the last chance at this year's elk. As the snow disappears, it takes with it the miracle of the white, letting the evergreen bristle through once again.
It's been 3 days since we saw our last elk, and they're here. When it's late in the season like this and you have no snow and no way to really find where the elk are going, makes it tough. But that's all part of it.
In the end, it's the elk and the mountain that decide the hunt.
You know, one thing about living in the mountains, This firewood is a never-ending job.
In elk country, fire is life, and you always need to spark a flame.
As I go along, sometimes I'll grab some moss off of trees or dead grass or whatever and stick it in my pocket to keep it dry. And one thing I put in is I put some pine sap. It's like an accelerant. So and every little bit of help you can get, take it. Think about the old mountain men back in the day, and boy, they were some tough hombres. You know, living up here by themselves, I mean, hundreds of miles from anywhere. You better know how to take care of yourself.
It was, to be sure, a rigorous life, but high up is the best place of all to wash your spirit clean.
Tell you what, this year's been something else. This is the second elk hunt that I've been on. There's always a chance that you're gonna go home empty-handed, or you're not hardly gonna see them because they move and there's some smart critters. You know, the way that I live my life and the way I spend time in the woods, it's tough in today's world because you have so much technology that makes it a lot easier on yourself. That's the way I was raised. I don't know nothing different. The good old mountain man life, to me, there's nothing else. The solitude, the high lonesome. I'm sure that's what kept them here. Wouldn't have it any other way.
In time, all rivers run to the sea. For Laramy Miller, though, it's going against the flow that carries him to where his soul tells him he needs to be.
To me, it's not about the kill or the animal you trap. It's about the adventure. It's about being out here in Mother Nature. Just look around me. That's what gets me outdoors.
You know, when I'm trying to find places to set traps, I just kind of go off a feel. I'm walking through here trying to put myself as a coyote, as a bobcat, fox, wolf, whatever it is, and say, hey, for one, there's a game trail right here, so you know the critter's gonna be running up and down the game trail. So as I'm walking through here, I'm just looking to see a nice little hideaway place that a coyote might go check out, or a wolf, or fox, or bobcat, or whatever it is. It's all about feel and trying to think like those critters. Most of the time it's close to a game trail, a natural pathway, so you've already got to start. If you think you've never trapped in your life and you know nothing about it, if you can catch a mouse in your house, you've ever deer hunted, you got a pretty good start. It's just getting out there and trying it.
We got us a wolf trap. I was just in here yesterday, so that's a fresh wolf trap. It looks like he was in here last night. So I do believe I'm gonna set a couple wolf traps right here along this creek. I always like to have a border because any kind of canine, they love to run, whether it's fence lines, creeks, ridges, whatever it is, you gotta have some kind of funnel for them. And this is perfect. We're right along the creek. Promising anyway. I'm gonna put the trap just up against that log over there, make a dirt hole set. Who knows, maybe I'll get lucky.
There's no limit to the tricks of the trapper's trade when you're talking about Laramy Miller.
Seeing what that parchment paper does is it keeps the melt and the ice from freezing up your trap. So I lay it on the bottom, and then I lay it on top of the pan, and then I'll cover it up. And especially like a day like today, it's really warm. It's trying to rain. It's in the mid-30s. Well, that's horrible for trapping, so you need to take every precaution you can to keep that trap from freezing up. The nice thing about those self-tapping anchors is even if you have soft ground, they flatten out when you pull on them. So that wolf, he shouldn't get out of that, but if he does, I have a drag for a backup. So now all that's left, throw some parchment paper over the top, cover it with a little bit of good snow, bait it, and then the waiting game starts. You know, at the same time with wolves, well, any canines really, you want to try to keep it as scent-free as you can of human scent. Because boy, if they smell it, game's up. The reason I set that up kind of high is so the wind can blow it around. And then I'll put another one down in there.
There's no rest from trapping work for Laramy. With the wolf trap set, it's time to check in on a pine marten trap from yesterday.
Well, would you look at that?
Uh-oh. The weasel family was out in full force last night.
This is the super highway for trappers, and Laramy Miller is traveling on it, back to where you use a lifetime of experience with fur bearers to make your living day by day. Trapping is full of surprises, as Laramy's about to learn.
Well, would you look at that?
It's a prime pine marten, one of the trapper's favorite animals to catch.
Tell you what, they are cool looking critters. You look at the teeth on them things, they're mean little suckers too. They kill squirrels and rabbits and grouse, but they are pretty. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna reset this trap, set it right back in there, and hopefully catch another marten. As you can see, this is just a simple marten box that I've got some meat in the back. I built these boxes, they're just for, it's got a hinged back so I can put the meat in, a little hole, the D-ring on it for the trap. I mean, simple. Don't overthink marten trapping. As long as you have scent and meat, they will come. You know, kind of like that baseball movie. You build it, they will come. On to the next one.
There's kind of a natural little game trail right here, and there's been a couple coyote tracks and a bobcat track. And so what I'm gonna do is, you can see this kind of bare spot over here below this tree. I'm gonna make a dirt hole set right there, and then I'll probably go over there and make another dirt hole set. And that way I'm kind of covering on both sides of this game trail that the coyotes and bobcats are walking down, and hopefully I can get lucky. There's a lot of action in here though. This is a new place that I just found. It's along the river. Perfect, like a trapper's dream.
The more care and attention Laramy puts into his trap sets, the more likely they'll be to pay off for him.
Well, probably the biggest thing when you're trapping, especially canines or, you know, smart critters like that, is your scent. You have to keep your scent down. That's why I've got rubber gloves, rubber boots to help mask the human scent. And those animals make a living off their nose, so. And what I'm gonna do here is I've got 2 stakes and I'm gonna drive them in at opposite directions. That way it's hard to pull out. And then I'm gonna do just like I do with all my sets. When I've got leg holds like this, is I'll put some parchment paper in the bottom. That's just to keep that frost off the trap, bottom and top. And right here you can see it's called a dirt hole set for a reason. It looks like a mole or, you know, something digging back in the ground here. And that's where you set your bait, is back up in there. So a coyote, bobcat, whatever it is, comes trotting down here, sees this, smells it, comes over to investigate. They smell that bait inside there. And then hopefully they step on your trap and kabloomy. Now you just apply the bait, and then I'll put a call lure just a little at its scent on to the next one. Uh-oh. There's wolverine tracks all over the top of my traps.
Along the mountain rivers, Laramy Miller sets his traps for all types of critters, and it's paid off. After setting and resetting his traps, Laramy moves on to find the next profitable spot. To live his life, Laramy has to see to treating his traps with a coating of new wax.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I've got water in here. I'm gonna heat this water up. Then I'm gonna put some wax in there, let that wax melt. As you can tell, one's white, one's black. There's no difference, just the coloring. And it'll create a film along the top of that water. I'll take my traps. All these traps have already been dyed. You've seen me dye traps before, but now I'm gonna wax them. And the whole reason you wanna dip traps in wax is it helps with the longevity. It makes your traps faster, so you have less misses, and keeps them clean. So I'm gonna stick those traps in the wax, pull them out, let them dry. I'll be ready to go to the woods to catch some critters. So it's pretty simple. All you do is you dip it in, make sure it's covered completely, and then you pull it out. Okay, so that first trap, that's just a long spring coyote trap. This right here is a conibear, a 220, mainly for muskrat, beaver. You can use it for pine marten. Okay, now this trap, this is a big wolf trap. It's designed pretty much specifically for wolves. If you're in a place where you can trap mountain lions, this will work for mountain lions. But it's too big for any of your smaller canines or bobcats or anything like that. You can tell it's got the big spring on it. So when the wolf pulls back, it has a little give. I got a couple different anchors. It's set up. Well, that's all I'm gonna do for now. But the nice thing about this wax is you let it harden, you take it right off the top, you can use it again.
Dyeing and waxing is a seasonal chore for Laramy to make sure his traps take good care of him. Not even the best set trap is a guarantee of catching a critter every time.
Huh. Well, A swing and a miss. There's no telling really what got in here, but whatever it is, it got away. There's a possibility, there's a lot of turkey tracks and stuff in here, and these traps are designed to catch pawed animals. So a turkey steps in there, a lot of times it can get out. Deer, the same way. Deer steps in there, a lot of times they'll pull it right back out because they don't have that paw that is bigger than their ankle. Deer and everything, it's pretty cylindrical and it'll pull right out. So I'll reset it and try again.
A leg hold trap doesn't always trap, and sometimes it doesn't even do any damage. One of the best and safest ways of catching wolves and lions for transplant is to use a leg hold. This looks like trouble.
There's wolverine tracks all over the top of my traps. Uh-oh. The weasel family was out in full force last night.
Going against the current, hammering out a living with skill and steel, carrying on the knowledge of the Rocky Mountain trapper.
A swing and a miss.
Laramy Miller presses on.
There's wolverine tracks all over the top of my traps. But it's good to see the tracks. I haven't seen wolverine tracks in this area for quite a while, so that's a pretty neat thing to have running around in these woods. That's cool. The little suckers running around everywhere in here. Score! The weasel family was out in full force last night. Got that wolverine running around and got a marten in a trap. Nice. It's a nice marten, pretty hide. I'm gonna reset this trap, slide it back in there. I still got my bait. There's plenty of marten sit around. Go check the rest of my marten traps.
The woods can seem a lonely place sometimes, but it can be worse when something's dogging your tracks.
Uh-oh. A wolverine is following my trail. I'll bet money he stole the bait out of this wolf trap up here. Sure enough. That little dude. Man, he just did like a tap dance on top of that trap. Dang rain. I'm just gonna rebait this and clear that little top layer off of this so hopefully it doesn't freeze again, and leave maybe a 1/4 inch. All this scent isn't necessarily a bad thing. A wolf might come in here and smell it just to check it out. So you never know, it might be a blessing in disguise. Tell you what, that's a pretty good day. Got a wolverine running around in here checking my wolf sets. That's my second marten today. Who knows what's in my other sets down the river. I'm enjoying this. That's a great day in the trapping woods.
Especially with prime marten pelts bringing more than $100 a piece.
Oops. Check that out. Look at the difference in coloring. I mean, these two marten are caught within a 1/4 mile of each other. And look at the difference in color. It's pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure they're both males too. Huh. They are pretty little things. but vicious. I'm gonna reset this trap and go see what else Mother Nature has in store for me.
Of all the ways for a man to live his life, it's hard to say that one is best. But there are so many that are downright sorry. Some are definitely better. No question, Laramy Miller has found the one that is best for him.
Looks good.
The trapper's trade is a fading art, but one helped kept alive by those that honor the traditions of old.
I tell you what, it doesn't get much better than this. You know, I'm always thinking about the past, and you think about first expeditions through here, Lewis and Clark, the Native Americans before them. This country was untouched. You know, game plentiful everywhere, fish by the thousands and thousands in the rivers. Not a house, not a person anywhere around. I mean, truly, truly wild land. There's still parts that are wild, but I can only experience just a small sliver of what they got to experience and see out here, of what they had. And it's awesome. I couldn't be happier.
On the mountain crest, it's Laramy's last chance at venison.
You know, ridges like this are really good this time of year to hunt for deer. Those bucks, they're starting to rut, and so they'll make rub lines, and they run ridges like this up and down looking for does. It might be a good idea. I might just sit here for a while and hopefully get lucky and a buck will come running by.
It's in keeping with what the Indians believed. You didn't take the deer gave itself to you.
You know, this time of year, you just never know about these deer. They could be moving all day long. They could not move at all. It's the pre-rut, so they're getting ready. They're just waiting for the does to say the word. All I need is one doe to come in, and it'll be on.
Needles and haystacks, deer and timber. A painstaking search quickened by the want of meat before season's end. Even though a deer's a gift, don't mean you can always keep yourself from looking under the Christmas tree.
Just missed him.
Well, it's good to know at least someone or something's getting fat in these mountains. There's a buck, but a buck of a different color. There's a mosaic of different areas, different seasons, different deer, all across these same mountains. So, getting into range of one you can take, well, can leave you rolling around like a white ball on a wobbly green table.
He disappeared. I don't know where he went. I've got the wind right. There's no way they could have smelled me or seen me. Dang it.
Hunting as hard as he does, Laramy needs to know how to keep a suit of buckskin armor in one piece.
It's been through a lot, this old vest. You can see right here, it's kind of ripped down the armpit. I'll cut some of this elk hide. I'm just gonna cut a small piece about 3 inches wide to go over the top of that and fold back on the inside. And I'm just gonna sew through it. That ought to do her. You know, this is just extra elk hide I've got laying around. I've got a lot of scraps laying everywhere. One plus about being a mountain man. Never have a shortage of leather.
Along with being his own gunsmith, blacksmith, doctor, cook, and dishwasher, well, more than one resolute mountain man had to be his own seamstress, too.
Well, I think that's gonna fit good and add a little character to the vest.
Of course, patching a vest with elk hide and sinew ain't exactly like sitting down to a quilting bee.
It's been a lifesaver. I've worn it for the last 10 years. Moose in Canada, bear and caribou in Alaska. It's kept me warm in places I didn't think it would.
Polyester this, nylon that. Well, it don't hold a candle to what nature's already made.
So thanks, Papa John. You saved my bacon.
For a mountain man, it only takes a lifetime of study to learn how to survive.
Well, I didn't just wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm gonna start working with leather, or, I'm gonna become a mountain man. It was bred into me. It's like the racehorse. You don't just go pull a horse off the street to run in the Kentucky Derby. The racehorse knows nothing else. Well, I know nothing else. And I plan on this thing lasting me a heck of a lot longer than just 10 or 12 years. It's a way of life. And I'm just thankful my grandpa and uncles taught me what I know, because nowadays it's a lost art.
Centuries ago, the first mountain men ran these ridges. Well, now, Laramy Miller runs them, hunting for the last deer of the season.
Some of this country can be really loud to walk in.
On these dry needles and rocks, it sounds kind of like broken glass wrapped in cellophane.
My uncle used to always say, you need to be like a cat. He called the catwalk. You go from the heel of your foot, roll on the outside to the ball. So heel, ball. And if you notice, you can feel everything that's underneath your foot, and it makes you a lot quieter. Just try it sometime, it helps. Mountain men, they had it pretty good when it came to hunting. There were animals around every corner back then. Nowadays, you got all the development everywhere, and not as much country for these critters to roam. A lot more predators, including two-legged ones. But at the end of the day, it's about the experience, not about the kill. But you can't eat experience either.
This is about fitting right here. It's trying to snow a little bit. You never can tell the weather in the Rockies. I've literally had days where in the morning you get frostbite, get a sunburn in the middle of the day, and that next night you get 2 foot of snow. But that's half the reason I love it. Keeps you on your toes. One thing that's always impressed me is animals' reaction when there's weather coming in. They can tell long before the weather ever gets there. It could be 3-4 hours before a big snowstorm, or 15 minutes before it's gonna rain. They know it. And you can tell by the way that they react. They'll start getting jittery, a little more energy. It's always amazed me, and I try to key off those same feelings that they have. I can tell when weather's moving in. long before it gets there. You can just feel it in your bones. I watch them critters a lot, and I bet you money them mountain men back in the day, they watched them animals, and a lot of those senses helped save their lives.
The Indians lived near as close to the bone as the animals, and had much to teach the mountain men. The earliest mountain men were nothing but greenhorns, compared to the Indians they met at least. Without the Indians to learn from, they would have gone broke and starved, whichever came first. The mountain men offered Indians guns and steel. In return, Indians taught them to trap furs and to hunt game. And many a mountain man became half Indian himself. The mountain men learned their most lasting lessons from living with the Indian. And what they learned was how to live with the land, more than off of it, and certainly never against it.
You know, the snow can mean a couple things. That'll make it easier on me hunting-wise. But if we get too much snow, it can also push them clean out of here and they'll head down into their wintering ranges, so it might be slim pickings.
Following rub lines along the ridges is Laramy Miller's last chance at winter meat. It's all out on the slopes and in the weather before the clock winds down. Snowy blankets on the pines and white blankets on the ground mean even cat feet can make too much noise.
You know, it's really hard when you get crunchy snow like this because it turned negative and it is so loud to try to walk through because everything crunches like walking on potato chips. Those deer can hear you from a mile away. Wish I could float, levitate.
Here, at last, are deer. But the wrong species in the wrong unit at the wrong time.
You know, the way game laws are right now, I can shoot either a mule deer or a whitetail, but it's cut up in different units. So one unit I can hunt whitetail, one unit I can hunt mule deer. So it seems like wherever I can't hunt, say mule deer, I see mule deer. Wherever I can hunt them, all I see is does.
Hunting these mountain whitetail, it's a lot different than, hunting whitetail in the Midwest or the South or Northeast. These whitetail, they move a lot like mule deer or elk, or they cover quite a bit of country. So you know what that means, you gotta cover country. Yeah, that's the kind of hunting I like though. Beautiful day, snowed yesterday. Nice and quiet, in just a matter of time, the rut should be on. Just got to put in the work.
No matter how hard you work, though, you sure can't stop time. And that sun is setting on more than just the end of the day.
There's a buck and a doe up here on this hill. Boy, he's just bird dogging that doe. He's right up above her, just watching every move she makes. Okay, he just moved out of that opening. I'm gonna have to haul butt up this canyon to see if I can't get in front of it.
Well, now it's a lot less about moving silently as it is about getting where you need to be with daylight a-wasting.
I don't know where he went, but a little more, see if I can't get a better look.
For Laramy Miller, the mountain ridges mark the end of his hunting season. Facing a hard freeze and noisy ground is not the worst thing. Far worse is that time's running out, and there's still no deer on the ground.
Oh, he's running. Dang it. You know, it's so loud in here, all this crunchy snow. It's been in the negatives every day. It is harder than heck to sneak up on anything. I'm a firm believer, though. You only fail if you quit trying. A couple of good-sized fields up here on top of this ridge, and I'm just gonna walk the edge of these trees. I need to put some meat in the freezer, something serious. Hopefully I can get lucky. There's a big meadow right here, and a lot of times right at dark, these deer will come out and feed through this meadow, and the bucks will be chasing does. This is the last day of season, last hurrah, so I need some meat. And whatever shows up, I'm gonna fling some lead at it.
The daylight bleeds away as the darkness rises, like ink filling a pen.
There's a deer coming out right here.
It's not a good sign of a hit.
I don't know if I hit her or not. I have to go check.
The whitetail flagon was a token. There are only tracks and no blood in the snow.
Oh boy. I do believe I missed.
For Laramy Miller, it is a season of snow and a season of ashes. Luckily, there's more than just the hunt.
Well, that puts a wrap to my fall. Ended pretty much the same way it started. I don't even know what to say. It's been the toughest fall of my life, but still, I got so much to be thankful for.
Well, this fall has left its scars, but those are scars of the body. Much easier for a man to live with than the scars of the soul.
I bet you didn't know mountain men made skirts for little girls. But then again, you probably don't know my daughter Pepper.
Laramy's spirit has come through unscathed. And the warmth he feels within himself, that'll carry him over to next season.
This is what makes everything worth it.
What's this? Is it a skirt?
It's not killing an animal. It's not going out and getting the biggest critter in the woods. It's being in Mother Nature, the solitude, being one with the woods. There's nothing better in my mind. Well, I've been waiting all winter to finally get a good day so I can do some brain tanning. Well, today we got it. If you look right here, I've got a bear from last fall. I've already taken the head out. I'm gonna show you how to brain tan this, leaving the hair on. Now in the past, I've done it brain tanning where you slough the hair off at both sides, make sure it's nice and clean, and done buckskin. Well, this is gonna be brain tanned with hair on. It's really good to know for any kind of hides you want, whether it's just a pelt, coyote, beaver, a bear hide like this. It's nice to know for all of them. Okay, the first thing you gotta do is cut the pad completely out. So I'll cut down here.
Just because Laramy's cutting it off don't mean it ain't gonna get used.
There's a lot of uses for the hand part of the pad. The Inuits, they'll take it and they'll boil it up and make a soup out of it. It's a delicacy to them. I wouldn't quite call it a delicacy, but hey, to each is their own.
If you was of a mind to, you could call this finger food.
Well, what do you think of that backdrop behind me? Yeah, it's calling my name too. You know, the mountain men, they had to come out of the high country every winter as well. You just physically, you can't stay in there all winter. I mean, it's some rough, rugged area, deep snow, winds, cold. The mountain men, they used to come down and they'd go to rendezvous, or they'd have a cabin down in a valley somewhere or something like that, and that's where they would stay the winter. You might be able to stay in there for periods at a time, but, well, it ain't gonna be very long. And I'll be right back up there.
And when he's back on the mountain, Laramy needs to make sure he's got some hard bark on his back and his legs, and that's gonna be one of his tasks this spring.
Well, now that I got all these paws out, I'm gonna save these. I've got some friends that'll really enjoy them. Me, not so much, but don't ever want to let anything go to waste. So now, let's throw this over here.
Bearskins were just one of the hides mountain men traded. Pelts came in all sizes, shapes, and colors. It's true, beaver were prized, but lots of other critters fetched high dollars too. And for that reason, most mountain men didn't gussy up in ermine and mink. Buckskin did just fine, with plenty of elk and moose around to provide it. The animals even supplied their own sinew for making sewing thread. The clothing store was all around for mountain men, and they did their shopping with their Hawken rifles. Well, they may not have dressed in the latest New York fashions, but nobody could deny they was stylish, right down to their beaded moccasins.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna pull all this fat and meat off this hide with a knife. I'm gonna flesh it and get it down. You can see where you can kind of see those hair follicles. That's where I wanna get it down to. I wanna get this whole hide down to almost that. That way it soaks up that brain really good. I'll take the brain and I'll mash it up and I'll just work it into this hide. Then I'll roll it up, let it sit for an hour or two. Then I'll work it again. I'll apply more brain, and I don't want to smoke it because it's still got the hair on. I don't want to risk that hair dying or, those follicles coming loose to where it starts shedding and falling out. So it'll be done once I get the brain tan process finished. flushing out a bear hide or getting all that membrane and meat off the face.
It's after the fall, and Laramy's catching up on his chores, like fleshing a bear hide, so he can tan it the way the Indian and the mountain man did.
Okay, now I've got a majority of that fat and meat off. I'm just gonna use a draw knife and flesh this whole thing and get it down to where it's nice, all one color and thickness. That way, the brains will be able to penetrate it easy. Or at least easier anyway.
This is what taxidermists call fleshing down to the blue hide.
Now you've seen me use a draw knife fleshing like this on beaver, muskrat, heck, you've seen it on pine marten, deer, elk hide, a lot of different things. So I use the same tools just about every time. You know, having versatile tools is a big deal. When you think of the mountain men back in the day, they couldn't carry a bunch of different stuff. They'd use the same tools for the same purposes a majority of the time.
To take off all the fat and meat, you can't go getting into a lather now.
You know, the hardest part about fleshing out a bear hide or any animal you want to keep the face is getting all that membrane and meat off the face. Time consuming. You don't have to take the time to do this, but I like to just so it doesn't harden up on you. Okay, I've pretty much got a majority of the fat and membrane and everything off this hide. I want to go wash it really good before I take it any further. And then I'm gonna lay it just like this, let it dry, and I'm gonna take sandpaper and I'm just gonna rough all this up. And what that'll do is that'll help me get that off to where that brain can penetrate this hide a little better. And plus it'll take off all these little spots that are still left. I'm just gonna use this horse trough. It's already full of water and good to go.
And now you got a bear's jacket that is ready to drip dry. No ironing necessary, of course.
Okay, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna just cut all this extra meat off and get down to the brain so I can pull the brain out of this to use to brain tan. It's a crazy thing to think that the Native Americans figured out that from the brain of an animal, you can tan a hide. And supposedly every animal has enough brain to tan its own hide. Crazy to me. I mean, I don't think I would ever tried putting brains on a hide.
Indians have been doing it for centuries, though, and it's the natural oils in the brain that bring about the tanning.
I got about a gallon of water in this pot, and I'm just gonna scoop all the brains out, and then I'll get a stick and mix it up real good, warm it up, and that'll be my brain mixture. One thing you don't want to do when you are warming it up is you do not want to boil it.
Boiling it would cook off all the tannin oils, which is something you don't want. Before you go cooking your brains, let Laramy remind you again.
And the one thing you want to remember is you don't want to get this hot enough to boil, because then it'll cook your brain and it takes all those oil properties away and it won't work on your hide. So you want it to get warm enough, you know, lukewarm, maybe a little warmer, to where your hand can still stay in there comfortably before you take it out.
In the time-honored tradition of using all of the animal you hunt, Laramy's got this bear hide fleshed out. Now, he's ready to tan it with a natural solution made from brains.
So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna take this really coarse sandpaper and I'm gonna run it over this whole hide. So it roughs up the fibers and makes it to where it'll be a lot easier to penetrate these fibers with that brain.
Excepting for a few different tools, you can imagine the Indian following the same course to tan his hides. If he didn't have sandpaper, he might have had a pumice stone, or he could have used a shell, copper, bone, a horn, or even teeth as sanders.
Well, as you can tell, the sun's moving behind me, the wind's picking up. It just goes to show you how long it actually takes to do this. My brains are just about ready, so I'm gonna lay this on the ground flat so I can smooth the brains out all across the hide.
An Indian or an old mountain man might have heated up his brain solution in a clay pot, but when it came to applying it to the hide, their tool would have been the same as Laramy's.
Well, there you go. The one thing I want to make sure to do with this is don't set it in the sun or somewhere where it's going to dry out. You want to keep it nice and damp. You want to let that brain just penetrate that hide so it stays spongy. Now it's just a waiting game. I'll go take care of chores and I'll be back to that later.
There's no end to the work that goes into tending four-legged critters. One chore involves Laramy keeping up his training of this young horse. Once Green broke, Laramy's been teaching him that there's a time for work and a time for play, forging a deep bond between man and horse.
Well, what I'm doing today is my little boy, his pants are starting to wear out, so about time to make him another pair of buckskin pants. You can see right here, I've got half of a pattern already sketched out. I'm just gonna sketch out the other half, and then I'll just put them together, sew them. It'll have a button. It's gonna turn into a stinky pair of buckskins, literally. A little turd will run around and wear them out faster than I do. Well, there you go. Now we have both sides. That's the beginning of it. So I'll lay it out. I'll go through, punch holes about every 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I've got all the holes punched. I'm just gonna thread this leather through. I'll knot it on both ends and make sure it's snug but not too tight, and that's called a buck stitch. A buck stitch is just one thicker thread that goes down through, and it'll hold this whole section, so I'll wind it all the way through down to here. This buckskin will last forever. It takes a long time for it to wear out, even for mini squatches. You know, when I was a kid, I can remember going to my grandpa's shop and watching him work leather, and he'd let me play, and maybe it was taking a hole punch and punching through some saddle leather or whatever it was. That's kind of where I got my start and my love for working with my hands, is watching him. Yeah. I wish I could remember when I was that small.
Well, seeing as how I made Blaze something, I guess I better make Pepper something too. You know how jealous big sisters can get. The nice thing about this with hair on, you don't have to work it quite as much.
Oh, the job of tanning a bear hide is one you best not hurry. And while waiting on one hide, you can make some buckskin breeches for the young heir apparent to the House of Sasquatch.
Well, here's that bear hide I've been working on. I'm gonna unroll it, lay it on the ground, work it with my hands and let it dry. I don't want it to dry all the way, but I want it to, not be so spongy. Then I'll add more brain, work it in, and this hide will be ready. The nice thing about this with hair on, you don't have to work it quite as much. It's kind of crazy for me to think that every primitive culture on every continent, from China to Africa, figured out how to tan hides. They used different substances. Some of them used oily bases, fatty substances. Others used yucca plants. Of course, you got a lot of the Native Americans used brain. They all knew how to soften a hide to be able to make it pliable to wear. It amazes me that they went through the trial and error process to figure that out. This hide is working really well. It's soaking up all that brain. It's starting to dry, but it's still really soft and pliable. I'm impressed, it's looking good. I'm gonna let it dry some more, put some more brain on it and keep the process up, because you can never have enough brain. The more brains you put on it, the better. It'll just be softer and more pliable, and that's what you want. Well, I got about one more round of brains to put on this bear hide. But with this little bit of moisture coming down, I think I'm gonna roll it up and set it inside and wait out this little flurry that's coming through.
If you're gonna live here, whether it's on the summits or in their shade, you best learn to love storms, clouds, and tireless winds.
Well, a mountain man's work's never done. Time for another round of brains. Hair-on brain tanning is a lot more simple than making buckskins. So it's nice every once in a while to get a little bit of a break and do a nice bear rug like this. And the one thing about a brain tan hide is it's way stronger than any chemical tanned hide. It'll last twice as long. It's stretchy, it's pliable. It's kind of an amazing phenomenon. Well, looks like that hide's about there. I'm gonna roll it up and be good to go. Well, one more day to dry. I do believe that bear hide will be ready to hang on the wall. But now it's time for some shut-eye.
And at least for now, Laramy can give his brains a rest.